Good morning. This is the Budget and Public Employees Committee. It is Wednesday, May the 6th, 9:39. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Sanye. Vice Chair Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderman Devotie. Chair Aldred.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderman Devotie. 2 present.
Thank you. With that, we will jump down to item number 5, which will be committee discussion. We're skipping, or item number 6, we're skipping item number 4, which is Board Bill number 1, which is the city FY 20 annual budget. And the items today that we'll be discussing, item number 1, we will hear from the Office of Violence Prevention. After that, we will hear from the fire department. The committee will take a short little recess. We will come back and hear from the Department of Parks, Recreation, Forestry, and then we will wrap the day up with the Treasurer's Office. With that, we will jump right into the presentation for today. I think we do have, Madam Clerk, the slideshow for Office Violence Prevention. As we're pulling that up, Commissioner, sometimes I want to say Judge, Commissioner, if you can just introduce yourself, if you have any staff here with you, and then you can start your presentation as we are pulling that up.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Could you make your mic, just make sure your mic's on.
Testing. Very good. Good morning, members of the Board of Aldermen. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy here today to represent the Office of Violence Prevention. I have with me my grants manager, Ms. Cynthia Dixon, one of our program managers, Dr. Ajay, and of course, our director and his aide, Director Dace. And I am honored to be here today to talk about the Office of Violence Prevention. Good morning, ma'am. Do you want me to jump right into it? Very good. First slide, please. OVP was created in 2022 as to lead community violence intervention strategies to reduce homicides and non-fatal shootings.
And Commissioner, I know you're going to be, if you could just probably pull the mic a little bit to you so that it could be. The green light is on.
Yeah, green light's on. Actually, read from there. Very good. OVP was created in 2022 to lead community violence intervention strategies that reduce homicides and non-fatal shootings by building sustained relationships with individuals at the highest risk of being victims or as perpetrators of gun violence. We have 3 core strategies: street outreach, cognitive behavioral therapy, which we call rewiring how one thinks and processes moments of stress and of trauma, and focused deterrence. Focused deterrence is an approach where individuals who are at high risk of either being the victim of or committing violent crime are given opportunities for alternative choices. We have 11 target neighborhoods: Baden, College Hill, Columbus Square, Dutchtown, Fountain Park, Hamilton Heights, the O'Fallon Place neighborhood, Peabody and Darce Webby, Walnut Park East and West, and Wells Goodfellow. Our main strategic goal is to improve public safety. Next slide, please. By coordinating community-based, data-driven violence, prevention and intervention strategies that reduce violence, especially gun violence, and make St. Louis City neighborhoods safer. Our objectives: 1, to reduce shootings and homicides and other serious violence through targeted community violence intervention strategies. 2, to coordinate community organizations, public safety resources, and alternative responses and efforts to improve outcomes for residents most affected by violence. 3rd, and lastly, to focus resources on individuals and neighborhood at the highest risk using local health indicators and police violence data. What services are provided? Violence interruption and intervention and conflict de-escalation through credible messengers and relationship-based intervention. Crisis response, trauma-related services, supportive reentry, youth diversion and youth programming, along with youth jobs and employment. Employment assistance, again, restorative justice, harm reduction, domestic violence support, and technical assistance for community-led initiatives. The focus, next slide. Back up, I'm sorry. I'm going a little bit fast. The focus of the division is community violence intervention under a public health framework with particular focus on preventing and reducing gun violence. Community-centered approaches that build trust, support high-risk residents, and interrupt cycles of retaliation. Place-based investment in priority neighborhoods based on multi-year violence trends and community needs. Currently, we have 13 staff that I have the pleasure of leading. We have 2 current vacancies, a program coordinator, which we are looking to make an offer soon. We're in the process of finishing those interviews, and a client service coordinator. We currently are managing 87 different contracts with 67 different funded organizations. Core programs are supportive reentry, youth diversion. Next slide, please. In our years since our inception, our accomplishments are as follows. Across all of our analyzed neighborhoods, violent crime trends in 2025 show a clear and overall decline in violent crime compared to prior years. 11 out of our 18 different neighborhoods have experienced a 61% decrease in violent crime, including substantial reductions in the Fairground Park, Fountain Park, Forest Park, and High Point neighborhood. Overall data reflects that a majority of city neighborhoods experience reductions in violent crime alongside sustained and scaled OVP programmatic engagement. We have successfully implemented 2 of the 3 approaches within the Save Lives Now initiative through the East-West Gateway regional collaboration with street outreach and CBT training. And soon we will be implementing the 3rd of focused deterrence. Additionally, during that very turbulent time after the tornado, OVP was instrumental in assisting in that tornado recovery with our funded partners and other city departments. We have expanded, coordinated cross-sector work connecting community partners, city departments, and public safety resources. We have sustained community violence intervention and prevention services citywide with a focus on gun violence reduction in high-risk neighborhoods. Additionally, we have maintained an investment in youth programs, reentry, crisis response, trauma support, and violence interruption services that address the root causes of violence. Our core budget and our request to this board and to the city is for a request of about $14,628,260. Our OVP fiscal year 26 actual budget is $8,837,229, a difference between fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 proposed of about $140 $1,000. We have a couple of challenges. One of those is when I got appointed to this position, our office had been situated strategically at Grand and 70 in the Urban League Plaza there. We relocated our office because we do so much reentry programs and wanted to be closer to the citizens we serve at the jail. We relocated our offices back downtown and in better proximity to City Hall and City Justice Center. With this move, OVP will need to purchase office supplies items that we did not keep stocked previously due to the lack of space and storage in our previous location. We literally were sharing office space and hallway space and interview space with the daycare and some of the other central core fundings at the Urban League. Without the increased office supply budget, OVP staff will have to purchase supplies they need to, or will have to go without. And many of these supplies we've been purchasing out of our own pockets. We have requested $16,000. There's a proposed $8,000. We would like the committee to at least consider marginal increases there. Non-employee recognition awards and catering. We have asked for $20,000 because at this time we understand that with ARPA funds, which were our initial investment in our community engagement opportunities, we're going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to raise funds privately through philanthropy, through the goodwill of the community. And we are looking to partner with, we've already partnered in principle with the Urban League to have philanthropic, at least one philanthropic recognition ceremony that would also be an opportunity to raise large dollars with corporate and other fiduciaries out there that could help support our mission here in the city. Since we are losing a lot of our initial funding, it's going to be important for us to promote not only our name and our goodwill in the community, but to also recognize the hundreds of people have been so dedicated to this work, and I think have gone largely unnoticed and unrecognized. For that, we are requesting some funding just as an initial investment to be part of whatever could build on those opportunities for philanthropy to bring dollars, private dollars, into the city to support our current programming. Now the big core request, professional services. We have a requested $12 million in professional services, proposed $6.5 million. Professional services is a line item that some of our major contracts are funded under. Mission St. Louis and Show Me Peace. Behavioral health response, who are those mental health professionals who go out in those critical contacts with police. And living in Victory Sober Living. With ARPA funds sunsetting, OVP is requesting an additional, more than just the three previously mentioned, of 14 contracts. These organization and contracts were identified for ongoing support based upon their demonstrated quality of their programming, consistent outcome, data showing measurable impact in priority neighborhoods, a sustained record of contractual, fiscal, and reporting compliance. These organizations are pivotal in the continued success of OVP's leadership, the Save Lives Now initiative, and will be just as imperative in the implementation of our third approach of focused deterrence. To that effect, the 14 individual organizations that we have identified as those high-performing, high-service providers are the Harambe Youth Training Program, The Village, Ignite Hope, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, St. Louis Artworks, Love the Lou, Diamond Diva, Freedom Community Center, Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, Power STL, otherwise known as BRIC, which is the bullet-related injury clinic, Safe Streets and Safe Neighborhoods, Gene Slay's Boys and Girls Club, and Guardian Angels Settlement Association. Next slide, please. Additionally, OVP's supportive reentry program provides an array of support to increase stabilization and decrease the likelihood of recidivism. We are requesting a slight increase over the last year's budget in this category to allow OVP the opportunity to increase funding to the 3 organizations in this category, so that they are able to provide more services to a larger number of individuals coming from incarcerated circumstance. St. Louis Integrated Health Network, Keyway Center for Diversion and Reentry, and Unlocked Labs, and I'm sure all of you are very familiar with those above. As ARPA funding concludes, OVP's 2027 budget request strategically transitions proven community interventions into general, protecting violence reduction gains while building a sustainable ecosystem. And that's what's so important, a sustainable ecosystem. This deliberate investment maintains essential services in priority neighborhoods, demonstrates city commitment that attracts additional resources and supports the infrastructure, the staffing, data system, and partnerships that will sustain impact beyond any single funding cycle. Our basic priorities for this year is to sustain ARPA-driven violence reduction gains, transition 14 high-performing community-based contracts into general revenue to prevent service gaps, and that's the key. If you think about it, with these organizations, that's over 200 FTE, full-time employees, who are therapists and critical wound specialists and counselors and psychologists, and those service gaps will be ever present. But again, to prevent those service gaps in those neighborhoods with the highest degree of violence, building on a demonstrated impact of almost 5,929 different participants serviced and 52,000 different services delivered over that period. We would like to advance the Save Lives Now regional initiative, as this community is ever aware of the needs of regionalization and working with our neighbors, both to the east and to the west. It's a complete implementation of all of the 3 evidence-based approaches: street outreach, cognitive behavioral therapy, and focused deterrence, to achieve a 20% reduction in shootings and homicides over the 3-year period. We need to strengthen our ecosystem, invest beyond direct services into data systems, evaluation capacity, and technical assistance. And one of the biggest things that we're going to be doing is leadership development, trying to educate all of our providers on how to maintain and sustain the work that they have begun. This ensures the long-term stability and collective impact across a minimum of 67 different partner organizations. Lastly, we want to build a diversified and sustainable funding model. Strategically braid all the general revenue, Prop S, Prop P, federal grants, and philanthropic investments to create a very resilient funding base that sustains violence prevention work through the years to come. That is OVP, and I stand ready to address any questions and answer anything I can for you. And I thank you all for the opportunity to present OVP to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Starting in order of seniority, Alderman Browning.
Alderman.
Thank you for being here today, and thank you for that really informative presentation that kind of addressed a lot of the questions I had, which was that, ARPA money is rolling back and rolling down, and you're looking at a transition period, and it looks like you have your eye on the ball in figuring out how to do that transition. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, the professional services line, as you mentioned, you have a $12 million request and only $6.5 million funded. So we're looking at service cuts.
Yes.
And I just want to note here, my colleague from the 5th is going to be mad at me for coming back to this, but this is a fraction of SLMPD's budget, just an absolute fraction of it. They had a $15 million line for fleet services that they're going to go buy from Don Brown Chevrolet, which is a clear conflict of interest. And, thankfully our city was wise enough to deny that because we have other places that we could be spending this money that is more effective than some brand new cars from a dealership. And it hurts me. I mean, we've all seen that bumper sticker that's like, imagine if the military had to hold a bake sale to buy a new fighter jet. And this feels like that, where it's like, this isn't a ton of money when we're really looking in the context of our budget. And yet the effect it has, I have gone and I've sat down with Mission St. Louis. I've sat down with the providers out here that do this work. And even if we're talking about just a few lives that are changed because of this, that is generational trauma that is prevented by stopping the violence. Maybe some violence has already happened somewhere and the families are looking at retaliating against each other. And if you can just get in there and stop it before it continues, you're preventing, someone from losing their mother, someone from losing their brother, someone from losing their friend. And that just in terms of the value to those people, that's immeasurable. In terms to the economic impact to our city, that is measurable and it's significant. We should be looking to keep every person in our city, no matter how we do that. And so I guess my question for you is, you mentioned philanthropic dollars as possibly a way to plug one of these holes. Is there a particular organization out there that you that funds these things that you're kind of looking at, or?
It's a new world for me as well, but there's an old adage that goes by, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that means all the villagers have to be part of that equation in order to have any kind of success. So that means our most successful to our most challenged. My grandmother taught me a long time ago that every flood begins with a single drop of water. And those drops form streams that flow to a river that flows to the sea. Every little dollar, every penny I can get, I'm looking anywhere I can to help sustain what we've started and what we've built. And I absolutely agree with you. I haven't identified them, but in working and trying to process what our future is going to look like, I've made the initial connection with some of our community partners that this is a good way to begin to both promote your name, and your mission, and to bring others into the village, from the village into your effort. But I want to start at whoever has the most money who can help this city move these projects forward, because evidence has shown one homicide has residual cost of about $625,000. That's lost wages, that's prosecution, that's police time, that's all of the things that are attenuated that happen in that tragic moment. A shooting is like $300,000, meaning those community costs, not the pain that it costs alone, and the trauma that is a residual of that lingers for years and years. If I can do anything to stop one homicide, then I did something good that day.
Agreed. I think I struggle sometimes with thinking about the trauma that exists in our city and how that just feeds and builds more and more trauma. And it's the human side of things that I don't think is easily measured, but it is often so important to understand how communities are relating to each other. And this cycle, there's a reason we call it a cycle of violence.
Yes.
And so interrupting it, preventing it, helping people heal from it, because sometimes tragedy happens and it's not preventable, or we just didn't get there in time, but there's healing that can happen that prevents it from becoming that ongoing thing that just hurts more and more people. And I think that finding money for this is important. I think making sure that we can continue these programs is part of the comprehensive picture of public safety that we need to be looking at in our city.
Yes,
And so,
I agree.
as you're looking at your budget and services that you're going to have to cut, my only ask would be, I think you need to be a little more specific about exactly what you're not going to be able to do, because I want to understand what we're losing if we don't fund these programs, to be able to make sure that we do prioritize it in some way. If we can move money around to even not maybe get up to that $12 million, but if we can get another 500,000, 800,000, 1 million.
I'd take three to 5 million.
Yeah. Whatever we can do. I mean, I think this is one of those things that when we look at how ARPA money was spent, I think this is one of the programs that came out of it that we should look at figuring out how to continue. So thank you so much for the work you've been doing. And I just say, keep it up. You're going to have to be creative, but I think we've got some good leadership in place, and I think that there's going to be more good that you can do. So just keep proving it and keep going out there and doing the good work. As you've said, if one life is saved, you can go home and rest easy at night knowing that you made a difference in the city. And I think you can point to much more than that. So I really appreciate you coming here today, and I don't have any more questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, Judge Chair.
How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here this morning.
Yes, ma'am.
I always thank folks for their work, so thank you for the work that you've done. You've been here for a short time, but we've had a number of conversations.
We have. I appreciate them all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to kind of get straight to it. I think my question is probably actually very similar to what the Alderman from Ninth mentioned. If this 12, you got about half of what you requested. So
Yes.
what is your strategy with half of the programming? I guess obviously we probably can't get you to 12 million, but do you have an idea of like what you think that you would be able to fundraise or secure in other grant sources? What is really, my question is really about what is it that would be that you imagine you might have to cut, and how much, obviously if we can't get you back to 12 million, you said that you would take 3 to 5 million, but what is it that would be
At
really
this-
prioritized?
Sure. We would be blessed to have any increase in funding, because every little dollar, now you think about it, you can build a new apartment building or a new complex somewhere here in the city, and that's very necessary. Housing is absolutely essential. You take 10 million from them, that's one thing. You take $200 that we're not able to use, that's 10 kids that may not get fed that day. And so all those dollars are so essential. We are going to try to maximize both our production and our potential. That means the production that our providers put out, we're going to make sure that they are at their highest performing level. I don't have sources identified for new funding, but I'm going to find them. If I got to turn over rocks and beat every bush and go to every dinner, I can, just so that folks understand the mission that needs to be to be funded is so essential.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Tier, I don't mean to disrupt you, but if there's any way you can adjust your mic, you can pull them up. They're bendable, yes.
Okay, I got to be used to being a little taller.
Thank you.
Sorry, were you able to hear me, madam?
Yes, I can hear you. Folks at home who are watching, he was saying he's gonna turn every stone to find every dollar that he can, but doesn't exactly have a plan yet. So from the budget that is being proposed today, what would you have to cut specifically?
Well, from the budget today, I mean, those are those programs.
Those
that are-
14 organizations that you have
yeah,
listed here?
They are not going to be able to be funded.
All 14 of them?
Yes.
Okay.
But, I do have hope, Alderwoman, that the city will, and I'm not talking about the city proper and just city government, but the city together as a collective unit will stand tall. I cannot believe that such an essential, Our police department, and you know, I spent a lot of years as a judge and a prosecutor, and most recently in this last year, I know how effective our police department is, but I also know that what our providers did were substantially as relevant to that reduction, because when you take the harm down, when you take the trauma down, you give people the opportunity to heal, and things don't escalate. And as Alderman Browning said, the retaliation doesn't come. That subsequent pain doesn't manifest itself in your community. And I'm absolutely certain that what our partners provided were directly related to that reduction and had a profound impact in those neighborhoods. I grew up in those neighborhoods. I grew up between Dr. King and St. Louis Avenue. Those are my neighborhoods. But we will be utilizing whatever dollars we have to the fullest extent and to maximize both their production and their positivity to the community. But yeah, all 14 of those organizations will be going away.
So does that mean that do you know, like, okay, so we have a list of 14 organizations. What does that
those
look
are the
like?
ones we identified as the high performers.
What is,
have the most-
in terms of programming, what does that look like that would not be operating anymore in the city?
Well, Harambe Youth Training, let's take them. You know, Harambe does, teaches young children tuck pointing, an essential skill, a union trade level wage earning skill, but also giving them trauma-based therapy, soft skills in working. Annie Malone Children's Home, The Village, Ignite Hope, Big Brothers, all of those are programs that provide coordinated therapy, mentorship, job training, both hard skills and soft skills, all the way down the line. All of these entities. The only one that's not training is Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, and they provide that intervention court-related services that can be so hard to attain in domestic disputes, getting orders of protection, finding attorneys for divorce and custody. And so, but all of them, and then of course, Lisa LeGrone's organization, Safe Streets, which is similar to Show Me Peace. Those are the street interveners. Those are the people right on the street that day when something bad happens. All of that goes away.
Is there a list, if you get the $6.5 million, is it the, if none of these organizations would be able to you wouldn't have enough for these organizations without the additional $5 million. I guess my question is, the $6.5 million, where would that be going?
The 6.5 is going to sustain those programs we already have, because many times our contracts go beyond the fiscal year. So what we're doing is simply maintaining those organizations that are already currently running that have an expiration date beyond that fiscal note. So these are not new programming. We're just continuing what we've been doing.
Okay. I also noticed in your budget that there's, for computer software licenses, a request for $82,000. What is that software?
That's our Salesforce. Salesforce, for all of our new partners, there is a fee, for a licensing fee for them to utilize that, to put in all of their billing, the documentation that supports it. So we have to pay for those licensing fees of each of those new individuals.
So the budget that we have in front of us now would help you to sustain what has been going on, but it would
Correct.
not help you to.
But it doesn't advance us forward.
Right.
But it does maintain, and that's, I mean, we'll do with what we have to.
So there won't be like necessarily any programmatic cuts. You just won't be able to like necessarily put out any new RFPs or NOFAs for new projects.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And this is my last question. It's just about, I definitely have seen a number of violence prevention conferences, trainings, convenings. I know we have many other cities that have these things going on, and those strategies have been implemented in other places successfully. Is that what the travel out of town
Yes, ma'am.
line item is for, so that folks can have a chance to go to those convenings?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, we are looking at going to one of the largest ones in July, which is called the Gifford. And it's one of the nation's largest anti-violence and violence reduction programs in the country.
Is the idea that this would be for just like office staff, or would this be available for others who do violence prevention work to get a chance to
It
track
would
as
just be
well?
for our staff, because it's such a limited budget.
Yeah.
25,000 is not going to do a lot for us. But if we can partner with and go, one of the things I want to do, I want to go to Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore has a tremendous program in violence reduction, reduced their homicides by 50% within a 5-year period. I mean, those are the people I want to learn from.
This is my last question, and you might
Yes,
have to
ma'am.
think about this before you answer it, so
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that. Just in your professional opinion, especially as a judge, the budget in front of you, how do you think that that would impact crime or violence prevention efforts in our city?
I mean, any reduction of services is going to have an impact. How measurable it's going is hard to try and predict at this point. But you cannot take away that kind of service and not expect there to be a void.
So it may lead to more violence or crime.
I'd like to think that we're on a good path forward, that we are coming together as a community, but I think reasonable folks would say any reduction in the investment in that area is going to have an impact, and a profound one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Just a few questions. Colleagues have hit a lot of it.
Yes, sir.
I would say it sounds like the main concern is, which is on all of our mind and have been in conversation with organizations that are impacted by your office, of how to make sure that the work is sustained. Where, so that I am understanding this, you are asking for more professional services to continue to do the work, correct?
Yes.
In FY26, so you're already doing the work, the contracts of these organizations,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
In FY26, you received $8,735,000, and then this year you're receiving just a little bit more. So I know you're asking for more, but you're getting the same amount as last year, if not a little bit more, that was already doing the work for those organizations.
Right.
So help me understand where the gap is of.
Well, with ARPA sunsetting, all of that seed money that got us started, that started this ball rolling, that's going to be where our gap is. That's why we're trying to capture those high performers that were seeded with that ARPA funding. We have a number of proposals and programs that are running through Prop S, Prop P, and general revenue. That's what is already going to be maintained. The money that we're asking for would have been to supplement the cessation of that ARPA funding, and to keep some of those groups that we have seeded, to keep their missions going forward.
And going to some of the organizations, and we get to that slide show.
Which ones do you need, sir? The 14?
I got them. Yeah. And I know a lot of these organizations do amazing work. One of the things that when we do the Prop, I think, was it Prop S funding, that at some point, I see Ms. Carletta back there smiling, because it's always it's an interesting process. But there's organizations and all at this, in this time of age, is struggling to, have funding. Some have a little bit more capital, like Big Brothers Big Sisters,
Correct.
and maybe even potentially Gene Slay Boys and Girls Club compared to others. I don't want to start picking and choosing.
No. But what we try to do is be fair, not look at their portfolios, but look at their performance.
Are you all looking to go after any grants at all?
Oh, God, yes. One, like I said, Ms. Dixon, Cynthia.
And if Ms. Dixon want to, if y'all want to tag team, if you want to come up and say some words.
When you have a great grant writer,
It's
you
Cynthia
look to her
Davis.
for expertise.
Just state your first and last name, Ms. Dixon.
Cynthia Davis, not Dixon.
Davis.
He gave me a new name. We have been grant writing with a lot of the Bureau of Justice, Office of Justice Department grants. We're also looking at some philanthropic grants with Missouri Foundation for Health, Community Foundation, Kaiser Permanente. We're casting a wide net. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of grant writing right now to try to supplement some of these gaps that we will have with the missing funding there.
And you guys get up on the, you gotta get on the mic, Judge, if you,
We've already applied for, let's say, 4 or 5 of those major ones, of those major grants, but still laser focused on the same mission that some of our others who we're losing are doing.
so if this budget go into effect on July 1 of 2026, I was gonna say 7, but when will, I guess, services start or stop for some of these additional organizations?
Almost all of their contracts either end in May, June, or September.
Okay, so the ones that end this month in June without knowing, I guess, the outcome, or y'all, not renewing them based on the current budget you're receiving?
Yes, no, the ones that are ending May, the ARPA grants that are in June,
If you could speak a little bit more to the mic.
the grants that are ending in June and September, yeah, they will just go away. We don't have the funds to supplement that, the funds that they were receiving now.
And the 6.5 million, how many organizations will that be able to help?
The current, 1, 2, 3, yeah, about 7 or 8.
And then,
They're
so
currently-
7 to 8 currently, with the additional funds that would be able to help. Are these 7 to 8 on this list? The 7 to 8?
They're on the previous slide, the BHR, Behavioral Health Response, Show Me Peace, and Live, and then IHN, Keyway, and Unlock Labs. Those are the organizations that are in the professional services line and the supportive reentry line.
When you had conversations with Paul Payne and you requested the 12 and you didn't receive it, what was the pushback? I know this is not out of general revenue, it's from the local use tax. So I don't know how much has to go to other, when you get in those special taxes, some are allocated to police and all that. What was the...
I didn't feel any kind of negativity or pushback from budget, not at that particular time. I think that there is just a realization that you only have so many resources to provide, and I leave it to others to prioritize in their wisdom what are the essentials. All I can do is tell this body and the citizenry, this is what works for us, this is what we need, and we hope that you are able to help us realize those goals.
Going back a little bit to that, and not saying that I think it was any negativity, I'm just trying to understand, was it the reason of maybe not getting it because is it that we have to put the use tax in other pots, or was there conversations of trying to figure out how to supplement maybe some of the use tax and general revenue?
I don't think we've had those strategic kind of realignment discussions. We were requested to give what we utilized, what we need, how we could use it, and how much it's going to cost. And we've done the best that we can to try to prioritize those things that we think, in our estimation, work well for the city.
I think that is all the questions I have, unless any committee members have some outstanding questions. All right.
I thank you all for the opportunity.
No problem. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And clearly this is extremely important. I know during the public hearing that ENA held, majority of the response from the community was fund OVP. And I want to be clear, I think there may have been a little confusion that OVP is being funded. This office just always historically was funded from ARPA,
Right.
and now is being funded through the use tax, not at maybe the same amount with ARPA because it's a large amount, but there's definitely a need to continue the work that is going on to help reduce crime on a proactive way instead of, as my colleague from the 9th brought up, no shade to our police, but the work y'all do go hand in hand of being out there on the street, working with these organizations to kind of be the mediator before we even get to a spot where you need to call 911. So definitely appreciate the work that you and your staff is doing.
We're not going to stop working, Alderman, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to serve the city and do the best we can with what we have.
And as you look into kind of those events, please keep the board open. If we could support whatever those fundraisers or galas or whatever it is, how we can support as well.
I thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
You want to make a motion? I make a motion that we go into recess.
And what, until 10:30?
To 10:30. Yes.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I would like to take a motion to bring us out of recess.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are back from recess, and we are starting with the fire department. For folks at home that are tuning back in, we had an interesting moment before the fire department got here. The fire alarm went off, so what a way to introduce our fire chief with having a test of the fire drill, and it worked.
Fire department responded in 10 seconds.
10 seconds, they were here.
Well, I appreciate the you playing my walk-up music. I really enjoyed that. That's it's good to walk into City Hall with all the sirens going and bells going off and everybody running out. That's kind of what we're used to. So I felt right at home. So I'll get into the budget right away. I appreciate your hard work and diligence in sitting on this committee because it is a very, very important part of what we do here in the city. This is my 18th year presenting for the budget, so I'll get into the slides that we had to provide. Everybody knows what the fire department does. Everybody knows our mission. We provide the best possible fire, rescue, and emergency medical services for the protection of life, property, commerce, and the environment of the city of St. Louis. And 2025, I think the people of the city, the people of the region, the people of the state, even the people of the country got a pretty good introduction as to how good the St. Louis Fire and EMS Division is with the terrible disaster of the tornado striking on May 16th. So we responded, provided rescue services for basically 5 straight days, which was an impressive show of our commitment to the city and to protecting the lives and property of the people who live and work in the city. I passed out a book last Friday. I dropped it off at the chambers, and I don't know, did anybody get a copy of that? And that kind of went over everything we did. It's also broken down by wards, so you can get a very specific look at what happens within your respective ward. So we put that out every year, and it has a lot of information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me on that. Overview and functions. If we go to the next slide, right? That's it. We do a lot of training, which is reflected in the budget request. The study, we are constantly looking for new technology to move the fire department forward and keep us ahead of the fire services in this country. We investigate and provide resources and committees, and we study anything new that's coming out to assist us in doing our job. It's a 24/7 obligation. We did take on a new requirement this year as we did take over the tornado sirens and the upkeep and maintenance. We also inherited the EMA-1, which is our major command post, which used to be run by SEMA. That's brought under us now, and there are some reflections in the budget in regards to what's needed to keep that asset at top running capability. The accomplishments over the last year with ARPA funding, I know there's always concern with the ARPA funding and it isn't being spent. I can assure you that the fire department has spent every dime that we were given of the ARPA funding. We received 10 new medic units overall within the last year, a couple new fire trucks, 77-foot Quint. We've got 2 new pumpers that will arrive in June. We have a hook and ladder that should be here by October. The other increase within different departments, one what I will be talking to is the EMS billing revenue that's coming in. That's gone up, and that is something that we can still increase, and we're looking at doing that, which will be reflected in my comments here regarding the request for the budget year. We're in the process of adding a new public safety answering point to the city of St. Louis. It's being built behind headquarters. We probably got 18 months, maybe 2 years until we're up and running. It's under roof. The walls are up. The parking lot's mostly in. It's an impressive structure if you haven't seen it, located directly behind headquarters. There is going to be some discussion as far as governance of that facility, which are ongoing right now. It's going to vastly improve the city of St. Louis's ability to provide emergency dispatching, emergency communications, and coordination for everyday activities. And this includes, all departments that carry radios. It's really going to improve the ability of the city to move forward with that area. Updated sirens. We took that project on. Right now, we have 52 of the 60 sirens are working. We have 2 portable sirens that are in place filling gaps. As we add and renovate and upgrade these sirens, we looked at the study that was provided as far as coverage. So we added additional drivers to every tornado siren, which gave us a much louder broadcast. We still have 8 to go, and those remaining 8 are being relocated to provide coverage in areas that were lacking full coverage with the last tornado sirens. There are some issues with coordinating with Ameren and Spire for line movement and gas line movement. So if everything goes right, the weather holds, we should be done by May 31st. With that, gives us a full 1-year warranty moving forward with maintenance and upkeep throughout the year. And then the following year, we will have to go into a maintenance agreement to keep the sirens up and running. We have gone to a fully automated system, which is controlled by a computer. Which connects and talks to the National Weather Service. Right now, the main controller is in fire department headquarters. The secondary controller will be located in EMS headquarters, which is also manned 24/7. And that move should be made fairly soon. Let's get into the budget now. That's kind of the base, the foundation of what we were talking about. We asked for, in our initial request, $81,815,000. The proposed budget from the Budget Department came back at $77,994,140, about a $3 million difference. Of that difference, almost all of it was tied to personnel services, salaries, fringe benefits, pension benefits. Like I said, I've been doing this for 18 years. For the past 15 years, I've basically asked for the same additions to my budget. It really didn't change whatsoever. Some of the other line items up on this sheet is the GEMT funding. What that is, that's ground emergency medical transportation. That's like a reimbursement from the federal government for us supplying resources for Medicare and Medicaid that gets returned to the fire department. It covers our training needs, our equipment needs, our housing needs, the facilities we use to store equipment, and it's all based on a per percentage. And, that number there, as you can see, there's a big difference in the request and the proposed. I just sent two of my accountants to a seminar because something just didn't add up, and we were looking at the numbers and how they were figured, and the federal government allowed us to go back in and refigure our square footage and how we bill and how we received revenue. So this coming year, it looks like we're going to be able to add an additional $7 million to our revenue that we hadn't anticipated. So that's a good number to hold on to, an additional $7 million into the GEMT account, which is huge. So that wasn't reflected in this budget. The first, we have to have what's called, we give them a governmental payment, if you will, an upfront payment. And then come June 8th, we'll get a check back for the first $3.7 million. And then we'll have another one come in the second part of the year. So that's a big increase. The public safety sales tax 1 and 2 pretty much stayed the same. There's really not much that I need to tell you on that. When I talked about the positions and what I was asking for and what I've asked for the past several years, most of them are on the EMS side. I run 12 ambulances a day. I'm getting back to 12 ambulances. We were short manpower on the EMS side because of COVID, and it's taken me a couple of years to get back to it. We're slowly reaching that point. We do have MOUs in place with 2 private carriers that we use them on a daily basis, where we dispatch to them. They help us with the extra calls that are coming in. On the average, we give away about 80 calls a day to the privates, okay? And that's a number that concerns me. I mean, because that is lost revenue. When we give that away on a very low estimate. If I give away, and I'll stick with the number of 100 just for easy math for me, if I'm able to bill and receive collections on 15% out of 100 calls, that's about $5 million extra a year that I could be bringing in. And the reason that's an important number is because every year I ask for additional medic units, medics, paramedic crew chiefs, and EMTs to run those units. And that is, I just think we can increase our revenue with that.
Chief, thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask a clarifying question? And I know that we'll have time for more questions, but does the revenue, just because maybe I'm not understanding, the GEMT fund, that's from the federal government? Or that is, how does, I guess my question is, the private billing that we're missing out, what we could be billing, does that go into the GEMT fund?
No, that does not. It's
Okay.
only the calls that we go on. The calls that the private ambulances take, we can't claim those.
Right, but if we could claim those, where would that money go?
Right to the city.
To the
right,
city,
right into the GMT fund.
It would go into the GMT fund.
Correct.
Okay, and I know I'll have more questions later, but that's just
Okay.
what I want to know. Thank
Okay.
you.
Like I said, most of the difference in what I requested in the budget and what was provided in the budget is all employee cost, for the most part. Again, like I said, for the past many years, I asked for the funding of 2 deputy paramedic chiefs. I have 2 members acting as deputy, and they've been acting for the past 10 years. We used to pay them when Director of Personnel Frank was in here. He cut them out of the budget, even though we kept the position, which is an issue, and I've asked for that same position every year. I also asked for 4 additional paramedic crew chiefs, 12 paramedics, and 12 EMTs. What that would do would allow me to move from 12 full-time ambulances to 16 full-time ambulances, which would allow us to go on additional calls and would reflect in the GEMT funding and the revenue for the city. We collect revenue on a regular basis just as a regular EMS billing. We have a third-party biller that bills for us. So that would add to that and the GEMT side of it. So it's kind of a twofold producer of funds, if you will. The other positions we asked for an additional electronic technician supervisor. I've got 1 full-time employee. I have 1 per performance employee. who's responsible for all the radios, the communication devices, the PSAP review. So the workload on one person and a part-time person has gotten a little overwhelming for them. One of the line items that I wanted to talk about that it wasn't cut, but it was kept the same as it was in last year's budget, and it was the funding that we requested for the EMA vehicle, the Emergency Management Agency, which we took over and now responsible for. We've already provided about $100,000 in upgrades to that unit with radios and screens. It was a unit we used during the tornado. And this year, we asked for an additional $50,000 just to upgrade all of the computer devices, the Starlink stations, everything that we need to operate on an emergency scene. So that was really one of the things that is sorely needed to make sure that that we're able to respond and provide a unified command post at a scene. We go to the next slide, GEMT. This is what I was talking about, the GEMT by ordinance. The ordinance, as stated up there, 71-135, that was written about 4 years ago when the GEMT came into place. I think we were the 7th state to adopt a GEMT funding source. And with that, there was an ordinance written that basically says that the GEMT money will be used to assist the fire department with providing capital expenditures, training, and other items that go towards responding on different events. Let's see, communications devices. We've got about 5 years ago, we purchased radios and SCBAs. Our radios are approaching the end of their service life at about a 5-year mark. I believe we're going to get another 1.5 years, 2 years out of them. The only issue we have is Motorola has stopped producing parts. So we've already stockpiled some, but that's something that we're looking at for the coming year. The SCBAs also, they've got a service life of about 2.5, 3 more years left in them, and then we'll be looking at purchasing new ones. The GEMT funds helped us and provided the funding for the radios and the SCBAs. Normally, that would go out for a bond issue, which we didn't have to do. So,
And this is the fund that will have $7 million more?
well, but probably have closer to $10.5 to $12 million in that fund this year.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, appreciate the chair being flexible with my questions today. Thank you.
There's some funding needs also within EMS as far as some of our medical devices. A lot of those medical devices we were told were going to be handled by the opioid fund that was received, and as of yet we haven't seen that, but these are pretty important devices as far as our 15 lead defibrillators, the Lucas devices which help us provide CPR, AEDs for the fire trucks, the ambulances, and several buildings that the city owns, and we're kind of waiting on that opioid fund, which is going to be, that's going to be an issue that's going to come up fairly soon because we need to replace some of this equipment. Our apparatus, we're in a comfortable spot with our fire trucks right now. I'm going to give kudos and a shout out to the new ESD director who's done a tremendous job over the last several months. We do have some needs, and probably the biggest thing to remember, these fire trucks are taking approximately 18 months to 2 years to build. So if we wait until they are needed, by the time I get them, they're really needed. So that's something we have to consider. We do have a list and a request into the Capital Committee, and they have our request for new equipment going forward. Gaming fund. This is another issue that's the gaming fund was a revenue stream that came out of the acceptance of the gambling casinos, and it was split between the fire and the police department. I believe when it first started, we got $25,000, and it was earmarked for the marine unit and dive units that are used on the river when we had river boats. That's how that came into play. Our part of that funding now has gone up to $37,000. That by no means covers the needs of our Marine Task Force. We run quite a few boats on the river. They're very expensive to maintain. So that's something that needs to be looked at. When the fund was just first started, I believe, like I said, we got $25,000. I believe the police got $75,000. Well, right now, today, we're getting 37,000, and for fiscal '27, the police are at 3.5 million, and they don't provide any resources on the river. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Next slide. Yeah, that, so most of my budget is all salaries, operational. Some of the medical equipment has gone up a little bit because of what's going on in the Middle East. We're watching that closely. We're looking at other suppliers. But, just the average increase across the board with our budget, I think we had about a 1.5% to a 2% increase overall. So I was fairly confident that what we requested was well within the guidelines, and we tried to keep it tight. The fire departments, our buildings, our firehouses are 100 years old. As we look at trucks and new equipment, we have to custom make our trucks to fit in our houses because the doors aren't big enough because they were made for horses. So, which cost us some money. So it's as we think about where we're going to go in the future, we need to start looking at some of our firehouses. That's a big thing that really needs to be reviewed. Coming up this year, our manpower, we're about 65 firefighters down because of retirement, resignations, COVID, hit us hard. We have a class graduating the 19th of about 32 firefighters, and then we'll ask for another class of 50 right away. Like I said, we're about 60 men down, 60 firefighters down, so we're starting to rebuild, but it takes time. To say you can do it in a year, you can't. It's going to take me 2.5, 3 years to get back to where I want to get. EMS is coming back a little quicker. Our EMS staff went way down during COVID because everybody was going to the emergency rooms to work, the urgent access cares to work, who were offering big money. They've shut that down, so we're starting to see the medics and the EMTs come back. We're almost at full staffing with EMS. We're in preparations right now with the Director of Personnel to develop a new probationary firefighter test, which hopefully we'll be able to keep in-house and save some money on that. We're also preparing to discuss having a new promotional test for captains, battalion chiefs on the fire department. So that's in process as well. I think that was the last slide I had. We can go into specific questions on the budget now. See what I can do here.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Starting in order of seniority with Vice Chair Browning.
Thank you, Chief, for being here. And I just want to say a special thank you. On January 24th, there was a fire in the 9th Ward at the Chesterfield Apartments on Union and Waterman, and it was a bad fire. Took several hours to put out. It was in sub-zero temperatures. My understanding is the hoses kept freezing, and there was a lot of issues, but the fire department not only responded, but stood out there and in the cold and just worked in the snow until that fire was put out, and we were able to save neighboring buildings and prevent it from spreading further. And so I just really appreciate the work that was done. It's always tough when a tragedy hits a community, but thanks to the good work, we didn't have any casualties.
Nope.
And it was just it was a bad situation that could have been much worse. But I just really appreciate the efforts because I can't imagine having been out there that day. I know how cold it was, and I think that was just excellent work. I also just really appreciate you being in front of us today. It's important to be able to ask questions and really discuss the needs of your department with us so that we can make sure that you're getting what you need. So I just have a few questions for you, one of which is I see this line for FICA commissioned, in which there's last year was budgeted about $712,000, 0% of which has been spent so far. And I was wondering how that relates to commissioned firefighters that are paying into a public pension.
Right. That is a number that's provided by the budget office that's inserted into our budget. The FICA would be paid by, I believe, just our civilian staff, not by the firefighters. And when I say civilian staff, that also includes EMS. So they're grouped into that. So that number is something that's given to us and is downloaded into the system.
Okay, that's a helpful clarification. And then I think you addressed this, page 253 of this budget, internal services gas. Now I know internal services is a line that it's services that other city departments provide for you. And this year the budget went up a little bit. You actually requested 781,000, proposed those 998,000. And I think that's mostly because we're currently at war with Iran. Is that the gas is just more expensive?
I think that's a very conservative number, the 900,000 with the cost of fuel, and we use a lot of fuel. The last time we had a big bump in fuel cost, I want to say was 2010, we went up substantially, and back then our fuel allowance was closer to $1 million, and based on the fuel cost today, diesel and gas, and we use a lot of diesel.
Yeah.
And if you've seen just the cost at the pumps now, diesel's going at $10 a gallon. It's almost doubled. So I think that's going to be a very tough number to keep on target, if you will.
What's the size of the tank on one of the large trucks?
On most of our trucks,
Yeah.
minimum 50 gallons.
So,
So like $10 a gallon.
yeah.
We spend a lot of money, and we have our own fuel truck. We do buy it at a reduced cost because we buy directly from the suppliers. But still, it's going to be substantial. That the cost of fuel right now is going to hurt all departments across the city, from water department, streets department, anybody who's, especially with diesel, which most of our trucks are. That's going to be a number to keep our eye on.
And then on, let's see, page 254, I see that there was not a request for fleet capital asset, but there was $2.6 million awarded. Do you know what that is for?
I'm not sure where you're at.
In this large book I have, page 254, it's item 552-500.
552-500?
Asset. Looking at $2,625,000 that was proposed out of the city's budget, although I don't think the department requested it. So I was just curious. That seems like a number for, well, when we're talking about fleet capital asset, we're talking about what, vehicles?
Is that capital?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the amount?
$2,625,000.
Yeah, I don't know. What I'm thinking is that was the initial request for our capital for ambulances, because you look at our average fire truck, our average truck with no ladders on it, we're looking at about a 1.1 to 1.2 million cost. You get into a hook and ladder, you're looking at about 2.8, which we probably need to get 2 of those ordered. When you get into one of our rescue squads, you're looking at about 3.6 to 3.8. So, the 2.5 would
You think that's
buy us a
possible?
couple ambulances at $500,000 apiece. The ambulance we get 5 years out of. We're pretty good on ambulances right now. Like I said, we'll have 12 new ambulances within the next couple months, completed, all bought within the last year, so we'll be good on that. The fire trucks, it was, in my opinion, to keep rotating the stock so we didn't have to go to the city for a big bond issue and replace our entire fleet at one time. If we stay on track and buy 4 to 5 trucks a year, we'll eliminate that process and having our entire fleet be bad at one time and then having a brand new fleet. It didn't make sense to me, and that's what I've been trying to do over the past 18 years.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. We need to do it in all sectors. You're supposed to just renew over time instead of just let everything go bad and then replace it all at once.
Yeah, also when COVID hit, every big city got ARPA funding. So everybody had money to spend on trucks, which we did. We replaced a lot of our fleet. But at that time, we saw an increase of the apparatus cost of almost 28%. Supply, demand, and everybody had money, so the manufacturers never waste a good disaster. Winston Churchill, they raised the prices tremendously. So that was a big increase in cost. And you have to remember that on a frontline fire truck, we use that truck as a frontline for 10 years. And then we get 10 years out of it as a reserve truck. So we get 20 years service life out of a fire truck. After 20 years, the only thing left is scrap metal and some parts, but we do get 20 years out of it. The firefighters in the city take very good care of the equipment that's provided to us by the citizens.
I'm glad to hear that. I know that some of that ARPA money went towards that, but I also know that costs just soared on everything during just supply chain issues, but then also, as you're right, demand. And so I think we faced that with the refuse division too, where they got some new trucks, but we had to wait for like a year and a half just to get them because everyone was ordering new trucks, and
You're correct.
we have very special trucks that we have to order. So I'm definitely very concerned about EMTs. I think, we talk about I think this is true of firefighters too, but like the worst day of our lives is like your everyday. And so when you need an EMT, it's because you're going through an emergency and you need someone to respond. And yet I've heard that they've been pretty strained on numbers for years now. How are we doing? I think you were saying that with staffing's getting a little better since the pandemic.
Well, a couple answers to that question. All firefighters since 2002 have to have an EMT license. We provide the training. We also provide the ongoing training for certification, which takes place every 5 years. They have to recertify. So all firefighters since 2022 are EMTs now. They have to maintain that license. On the EMS side, when COVID hit, a lot of the schools shut down. We didn't have EMTs or paramedics in the classrooms. About 18 months ago, a year, we started seeing the graduation rate come up. We had more students. We had EMTs. We had paramedics coming out of school. You also have to understand that when they work for us, after 2-3 years, they're probably the most experienced, the best trained, and they've seen more trauma than anybody in this area. So once they get that 2 or 3 years under their belt, they're the gold standard in other communities. So I have a very difficult time retaining them. Now, I will say the salary levels have gotten a little better. The overtime has helped keep them. But after 3-4 years, they start looking at higher salary and half the calls. That's a pretty attractive benefit. So we do have a tough time keeping EMTs and paramedics strictly on the EMS side. So it's a balancing act. We're hiring and interviewing weekly. So I've got a class now of EMTs and medics, I think of about, I'll say 12. So they just started this Monday. So we're constantly hiring, but we're constantly seeing people leave as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sure it is a constant struggle. And that is just the nature of our fragmented region too, where we are competing with 88 other municipalities hiring in the county, and that's just the Missouri side.
Right.
So I understand the struggle that every department faces when it comes to skilled and experienced personnel.
And when they go out there and interview and say, I've spent the last 3 years in the city, it's like, really? Come on in.
Yeah. Well, so I'm looking at the number of positions that were requested. Specifically, there was a category chief paramedic in which I think the department requested 2 new positions, but they were not funded. Can you speak to what those would have been?
Right. The chief paramedic technically was a line item for the deputy chiefs that I talked about. That would be the deputy chief position. I have 4 shifts on EMS, A, B, C, and D. Each deputy controls 2 shifts. The deputies that are in there right now are acting deputies. I have always, since I took over in 2007, had 2 deputy chiefs of EMS. And the past director of personnel cut that position out. It is a very much needed position, but that category in the budget, when it says chief paramedic, that there was no line item in the computer spreadsheet to put deputy chief in there. That's why it says chief paramedic. Okay, it is a deputy chief. There would be 2 of them. That's what I requested, and I've requested that since 2010.
So one of these days, maybe. But
one of these days.
Yeah. And then there's a paramedic crew chief, which you had 11 positions budgeted last year. 10 of them occupied. This year requested 15, but the proposal is again for 11. So I think you're showing an expressed need for a few more.
Right.
And I'm curious too, as I look at, the paramedic and then the EMT positions, how do those relate? I know there are crews that go out in the ambulances. So like, what does a crew look like? Is it
Okay.
one crew chief, one paramedic, one EMT, or can you explain that?
I'll start with the EMT. There's always an EMT, which is emergency medical technician, which is the, I don't want to say the lowest, but it's the minimal training you can have to ride on an ambulance. Okay. Then there's a paramedic, which the paramedic is allowed to introduce narcotics, drugs, do evasive procedures to stabilize patients. The paramedic crew chief is somebody who's been a paramedic for several years. They go through an interview process, they go through a testing process, and they're more or less the field training officer, and they bounce around on different units to make sure that the protocols and all of the requirements of a Missouri ambulance are being followed. So if a paramedic is off, crew chief will fill that spot. Okay? We always ride two people on an ambulance, an EMT and a paramedic, or an EMT and a crew chief. The only time we ride three on an ambulance is when we have new students that have just graduated, and we'll ride them as a third person to give them training and to watch their skills to make sure they're up to the standards of the fire department.
So that's really helpful to understand that there's usually two people in an ambulance, and those are the crews that you're trying to fit out. You can't send an ambulance out without both of those people.
No, and the crew chief just they'll bounce around within their area and make sure that all the procedures are correct. Or if they think an EMT or a paramedic needs a little bit of assistance with the protocols and the standards, they'll sit and watch and evaluate, and then we provide ongoing training to make sure that they're doing things as we require.
And similarly, I see that in FY26, you were budgeted for 55 paramedics, only had about 41 in the occupied in the positions. This year requested 67, but the proposal budget is only for 55. Again, the same number budgeted last year.
Right.
Does that relate to just the numbers you see needed for shifts, that request for 67, even though you're kind of sitting at lower than that right now? Is your goal to get that higher because of how shifts have to be assigned? And I mean, it's a job that has to be answerable 24/7, right? So that's
Right.
a lot of shifts you have to
The
staff.
55 numbers are standard, and we're trying to increase that because we want to be able to put more units on the street. We cover our overflow, if you will, by calling in the privates, who we have a good relationship with. I mean, they carry our radios, we dispatch them directly, they've done a great job. But we're losing revenue, as I talked about before. For a city this size, for a city that sees the amount of calls that we see per day, and I look at, the other communities that have a larger EMS division like we do, and look at the call load, their hours worked, and that 16 to 18 total units per day is kind of the goal line, if you will, because it not only allows you to provide more revenue, but it also reduces the stress and call load on the other units. Rather than running 20 calls a day, I can knock you down to 15 calls a day. If you handle 10 calls in a 12-hour working period, that's a lot of calls. And these aren't, you have to understand when they get finished with a call and they, transport the person to the hospital and they do the transfer, they still have to come back in and clean that ambulance up. And I don't know if you've ever seen the back of an ambulance that just responded on a major trauma. It's not an easy process. It takes time. So, there's a balancing act there. At what point is too many ambulances? At what point is not enough ambulances? And my opinion that at 16 to 18. Now, do I think I could hire enough people within a fiscal year to get to 16? Probably not. But it's the ability to attract and say, hey, we're going to be running this number of ambulances, which is going to reduce your call load and reduce your stress. So, I'm looking at retention, stress levels, call loads, and when you work a 12-hour shift and handle that many calls, when you get to the end of that shift and you've handled your 11th or 12th call, you're starting to get a little aggravated. You know, your stress levels are up there a little higher. So, and we're totally a trauma-based system. So that's why I always push adding a couple ambulances. Like I said, I don't think I can get to that point in a fiscal year because of the limited amount of paramedics and EMTs that are available, but I think it's worth the effort.
Yeah, I would agree. And I really, that's why I have such respect for the people who respond to those types of emergency calls, because like I said, it's your worst day, it's there every day. And it's one of those things where when you call, you really need it. And the calls can range from, something that's relatively clean and treated on site and no need to run to the hospital, to full on traumatic, just the things that burn people out. And so
Oh, yeah.
I think having those numbers so that you can lessen the load on each person is important. Last question I have for you is, the position of probationary fire private seems to be underfunded in this budget. In FY26, you had 72 occupied positions. You requested 72 again in FY27, but the budget only proposes 44. Now, my assumption is that eventually these become fire privates, but there doesn't seem to be room in that category. Do all the probationary fire privates make it on to being a fire private, or is there some drop off?
Great question. I mentioned that we have a class in now that will graduate in a couple weeks. We started with a class of 50 members. We're down to 32. So no, they do not. It's about almost a 40-week academy. They have to get an EMT license, and we put them through the firefighter 1 and 2 skills, the live burns, the extrication training, and the hazardous material testing. There's a lot to it, and the applicants we see, their first touch, if you will, is, why do you want to be a firefighter? Well, I like watching Chicago Fire. It's not the same. We're kind of it's a tough, dirty job. And as they get into the training, a lot of them just say, no, this isn't for me. So a graduation rate, 60, 70% is a good rate. The other issue we're having with hiring new firefighters is the fact that the legalization of marijuana. When they come in to test for us, they have to pass a drug test, and we're seeing a fairly substantial failure rate. And it's legal. So I've had discussions with the director of personnel. It's like, that might be a test we need to think about changing, and the initial oncoming test shouldn't test for THC. But then once we get them, because they're around narcotics and drugs and working in ambulance and driving heavy equipment, can't be in your system anymore. You got to make a decision. You want to be able to do that or be a firefighter. That's something that it is in discussion, but we lose quite a few good applicants to that medical issue. The probationary firefighter position, getting ready to ask personnel for an additional 50 positions. I know 40 of them were funded. It cost me about $10,000 a firefighter to put clothes on them, uniforms, PPE, boots, helmets, gloves, a respirator. It's an expensive proposition. The balancing, if you will, of the 40 is how many firefighters are we short. So we're short 63 firefighters right now. So that's 63 salaries I'm not paid. I'm not paying. So some of that money I can transfer and cover my probationary cost. So does the balancing always work out? No, but that's where I pull the money from.
But you got to keep that pipeline running so that, even with the people that don't make it all the way through, you still have enough.
Right.
That makes sense. I know I said that was my last question, but you brought up the issue with legal marijuana, and I think that is interesting. Is that something that can be addressed with the city's internal processes? Is that a state thing that we have to fix?
Good. I think it needs to be looked at. You look at some of the major employers in the area. You know, look at the hospitals, WashU, Barnes-Jewish, Cardinal Glennon. Their initial oncoming test doesn't test for it.
Yeah.
But then as you get hired, it's like, here's your rules.
Well, but my question is that something we can fix within the city, or is that something that has to be fixed at the state level?
I think it happens, in my opinion, with the city. This is one of our hiring requirements. Here's the standards. You know, if you want to apply for this position, here's the rules. Fire department, once you get hired, here's our rules. You know, it's if this isn't for you.
And I had a good meeting with Director White last week, and he brought that up. So I know it's on his radar, something that hopefully we'll be addressing, because we want to be able to recruit and get people in these positions, and it's kind of silly that we are not quite caught up with where the state law is on that. Well, really appreciate again your time today. I really just always appreciate the answers that you bring. You know, you're the guy that has the answers, and so it means a lot that you're in front of us today and just bringing that information. I'll turn it back over to my colleagues now.
Alderwoman Sanye?
Thank you, Chairman. The Alderman of the Ninth really asked you already a lot of the questions that I had. I just quite a bit of personnel changes within your budget. So most of my correct questions were around that. I think the only other questions I have are just in regards to, is the fire department looking at securing some other funds through the Department of Homeland Security or FEMA, specifically the AFG assistance, you know, to the firefighters, they have a SAFER program, which is staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grants. They have fire prevention and safety grants. So I think my question is really around how those things, do you expect your department to apply for any of those funds?
No, those are important funds that we look at every year. The federal government over the past year and a half, 2 years, have put so many of the different grants on hold. The AFG grant, which we go after every year to supply our smoke detector and CO detectors. You know, we go after that almost every year, as long as the grant's rolling off, one comes on. The SAFER grant, same way, part of the Homeland Security effort. It's on hold. We're ready to apply if we have to apply for 30 extra positions, 40 extra positions. The problem with some of the SAFER grant, I'll speak to that, is, okay, you have so much time to be able to hire these people and get them through the positions, which becomes an issue, because if you don't put enough through, then you have to pay the grant back. So, but no, we're constantly looking for grants. What was the last one we just got? Like I said, the smoke detector and CO grant, which I believe last year, I think it was in the book that I provided, but I think we installed almost 5,000 smoke and CO detectors within the city. And that's an ongoing grant that we go after every year. So no, it's anytime we can pull up additional funds, we try and grab them.
So you do anticipate that you'll be applying for any of the things that I just mentioned?
I couldn't hear you.
So you do anticipate that you will be applying for some of those things that were just mentioned?
Yes, if they release it. Like a lot of them are on hold. Like
right.
Something as simple as going to the National Fire Academy, which our firefighters do under a grant program. They put that on hold right now, so some of the guys can't even go get training, the free grant training that we go to every year.
I noticed that in the budget, you requested 72 probationary fire privates, and you got 44 of them.
That was changed by the budget division. You know, like I said before, at this point, I'm 63 firefighters short in the city. I'm 8 firefighters short in the airport, which is 71, which is why my request was made for a class of 40 and a class of 30 of almost 70 plus firefighters. You know, I try and forecast how many I'm going to need based on retirements, resignations, and, you know, it's trying to get 70 firefighters through a class in 1 year is a difficult task, but those are my numbers.
How many did you have last year?
As far as graduation?
For probationary fire, probationary fire privates.
I think I had 80 last year, 2 classes. Because this is the second time, our third time I've requested a class of 50, which we can't always fill it.
So right now, basically, you're approved for a class of 44. in this budget. But you're saying that last year you had 80, so
I think I put 80 through last year.
you may
Total.
not have enough funds. to
Well,
pro-
I'm splitting fiscal years too. I'm going calendar year.
Right.
Okay, that's,
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Alderman Velazquez?
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Jenkerson, for being here and answering all of our questions. I know that firefighters have one of the most difficult jobs, and as one of your firefighters described to me, you're almost the Swiss Army knife of first responders, because you get everything from literally the cat up the tree to, I'm sure, some horrific accidents. So just thank you to you and all the folks who work for the fire department. I want to pick up a little bit on what Alderman Browning was talking about the EMT and the EMS area. And you said, so you have 12 operational ambulances, or you just have 12 new ones?
we're staffed for 12 ambulances per day, 24/7. We have 10 new ambulances that will be in, well, I think 8 of them are in service. Or 9 of them are in service. We got one more, 7, 8, I think there's 9 in service, one more coming that hasn't been delivered yet. So we'll have 10 brand-new ambulances. The rest of our fleet is in pretty good shape. Takes about 18 months to build an ambulance. We are speccing new ambulances as of this day. We've been working on those for a couple months. So hopefully, with the next capital budget, we'll order 2 additional ambulances.
So right now, we're operating at 12 per day, and then ideally, you said, because this kind of relates back into that revenue question, that to be answering, so let me back up. Do you know about how many of the calls that we get are serviced by private ambulances? And I'm glad that you have a great relationship, but just trying to understand.
I get a report every day of total calls in the city and how many the city units answered and how many the county units answered. Because our staff is increasing, and most days now we're running 11 to 12 of our own ambulances. That number has gone from an average of about 100 calls that we gave to the privates down to about 60 to 65 on a daily basis. So it has come down.
Out of how many calls-ish?
250 a day.
So maybe a quarter of the calls?
Yeah, and if our staff is lower, if I'm running 8 to 9 ambulances, accordingly, that number that we give to the privates goes up.
So if we were to have, say, 16 ambulances running a day, do you think we'd be closer to that 100%?
100% being the
Answering all, I guess my question is.
All our calls ourselves.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'm going to say initially no, but I believe we can get that number down to about 25 or 30 calls per day. You know, because some of the calls will transfer over to the privates that are made at shift change, and it's, you know, they're minor calls, and we'll have them run it. But I think having the MOU with the privates to help us, should we get a strong influx of calls, is worth having. It just protects our citizens. You know, the fire department is not a very good model of efficiency. My opinion of a fire service, that being fire and EMS, is I have to be a model of resiliency, redundancy. In other words, if I run out of trucks, I want to be able to point and get another truck. I can't wait and say, I'm sorry, I ran out of trucks. People don't want to hear that. When you make a phone call and somebody's sick, well, hold on, you don't want to say, I have no units available. So it's I'm of the opinion I have to keep the MOUs in place, because I want to be able to provide a service for the people should they call. At no time do I want to say, I'm sorry, I'm out of.
Well, and that's great. That's good for me to understand. I guess what I'm asking is, and I know it's not a model of efficiency, that we're just trying to be a model of service, but if you were to have more ambulances, you'd be able to get reimbursed for more.
Correct.
Which means that there could be more revenue coming in to balance things out. So I think my question is more of, what would you need and what would those numbers be for us to increase the revenue? And is there analysis that maybe you could provide the budget, committee for what that would look like, and maybe, you said it's not, you can't hire 67 people in 1 year, but what would that process look like, and what, because it seems like a missed opportunity at the same time, right? Because we're giving those, and not that we don't want to have that redundancy, but we're giving those calls when we're giving that potential revenue that we could be taking in of things that we're good at anyway. And so how do we do that?
I can provide you with the spreadsheet that I did provide to the budget department regarding an estimate on lost revenue, gain revenue. You have to understand, same way, it's a sliding scale, it's a balancing act. If I had 12 to 14 units available to me per day, like when we have events downtown, the parades, whatever they are, I call overtime to fill them spots on an ambulance. I have to keep an ambulance downtown. If I had the 14 to 16 to 18 units available, I can take 2 of those units off the street and put them downtown and handle those calls. So it would help me in various regions, not just the response, but also the special events, the areas that are having the parades, the festivals, the food trucks in Tower Grove Park. That's an area that, we put 10, 15,000 people into this park, and there's no ambulance on standby. There should be an ambulance on standby. So that's, rather than strictly relying on overtime to fill them spots, I'd have units available to fill that.
Could you share that analysis of what it would, and I'm going to guess too that with the GEM reimbursement, I don't know, not every call is reimbursed at the same rate, I would imagine.
No, they're not. And not every call is reimbursed. You look at our revenue collection on the EMS side, we track at about 43 to 44% of total calls. Not everybody pays. We have a third-party biller that tries to track people down and get the insurance, but it's, if we hit 50%, we're doing good.
But you could provide analysis
There's
that would
revenue there.
Yeah, I would love to see that, because I think that's, something, and we're thinking about, again, not that we want to think about lives as return on investment,
I can
but,
send it to you.
but
That's easy. That sheet's already printed and ready to go.
but it seems like it would create a little bit more sustainability and buffer in your department if we were able to do all that simultaneously.
You're 100% correct.
My other questions, I think those are all the ones I have. Oh, I do have another GMT question. Actually, I have 2. One's a funding one. The opioid settlement funds, who manages the disbursement of that? Is that a federal or a
Department.
state?
The health department,
The state health department?
city health department.
The city health department, okay.
Yep, yeah.
And then you said the GMT funds can only be used for capital expenses?
They could only be used by the fire department, the way the ordinance was written. The ordinance, I gave the number to you up there.
You do. It is 71135.
Yep. And that basically describes how the GEMT funds are to be used.
So do you think that needs to be, could that be updated to be able to use those funds for personnel?
Yes,
Is that something that would be helpful to the department?
yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know, we always say final questions around here, and then I am guilty as that as anyone else. I know the chairman's over there laughing. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. I think a lot of us here care about the amount of vacant buildings and the number of vacant buildings. We've worked to, try and increase legislation. We have increased legislation around fines and fees. But do you know how many roughly responses or percentage of responses your department had involving vacant or abandoned buildings?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I can pull a pretty close number. I think that number would surprise you based on climate and time of year, based on cold weather. We see our calls of vacant buildings go up because people are using them for shelters. We know that. We do know that our vacant building responses for fires are pretty much associated with the unhoused going in and using them, but I can supply that number.
I think that would be helpful. I know that I have one in my ward, the Chemtech building. I think that was called the Chemtech building, the one outside of Home Depot on Kings Highway that they finally.
It's gone.
It's gone. We were,
gone.
I was very excited to see it demolished. I know some people are not excited about fast food, but one less vacant building that people are
No, we had 4 or 5 fires in that building.
Just last year, yeah,
Oh, I know.
and several board up. So this might be in your analysis too of the cost to the department and both personnel hours, equipment. What's the total time cost and people cost of responding to vacant buildings? And my add-on, is there anything that, we as a city could do to help support that number going down?
Take them down. That's the bottom line. Get rid of some of these vacant buildings. We were talking about this fuel cost, just the basic cost of fuel to have 3 or 4 fire department apparatus on that scene for 4 or 5 hours pumping. Because a lot of the vacant buildings, we had a vacant building policy that we put in place where we inspected about 8,000 vacant buildings. And we rated the buildings on a scale of 3. In other words, you can enter to put the fire out, limited entry, or no entry at all. So as a fire is dispatched, or the companies are dispatched to a fire in a vacant building, they get a computer readout that says, no, you can't go in this building. So that's going to be 3 or 4 companies sitting on that building while it burns to make sure we knock it down. And it's an expensive proposition.
I mean, I don't know if that analysis is easy for you or the department to, or at least some numbers I would like to see. Probably my colleagues would too, the ones who
I
are
can get some
concerned
basic
about
numbers.
vacancy. Just because it's a health, you know more, it's a risk for you, for the firefighters just as much or more so than anybody else. I don't have any more questions for you I could ask, but I want to be respectful of time. So thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
You sure, Alder Lady? Anything else?
You want me? I've got like 5 more.
No, it's okay. If you got some, seriously, we got a break in between. It's up to if you want to take your break or not.
No, I'm good.
Just 2 questions, or 3 questions that I have, and literally 3. I know my colleagues say last. I'm just teasing. Geez, and now I'm losing it. Well, one is, so I know the police department, which is not you all, when they get the 7% raise. When they get the 7% raise, currently our fire department is under parity, correct? So if they get it, our fire department also get that raise, correct?
The fire department does have parity with the police department at all levels, from the police chief on down to the patrolman. So each corresponding rank is correlated. Police chief, fire chief, major, deputy chief. Their lieutenant colonels would be our deputies, and their majors would be our battalion chiefs. So each one has a correlated rank, so that police and fire do receive. If police get a raise, fire gets a raise, parity. So that hasn't been rescinded. It's part of the city charter, and it's still there. And this time they haven't received their raises.
Say the last part.
The fire department has not received their raises.
So when we just did the police raise, you're saying the fire department didn't get the parity?
We are not getting it yet.
Is that, maybe that's a personnel department issue?
I don't think it has, in my opinion, and as I've been around for a few years, parity is parity. If the police are given a raise, the firefighters are given a raise, and that's at all ranks.
And you haven't got it yet, which is not, it's, okay, good to know.
Same way at the chief level. I haven't received a raise, and the police chief has received a raise.
Got it. So if you didn't receive it, that means firefighters haven't received it, EMS workers haven't received it.
And EMS is not part of it. It's just the fire side.
That's another part of my question. So firefighters can do EMT work.
Correct.
But on the reverse, EMT can't, they can't do firefighters work, correct?
Correct.
Is that and I guess it goes into the raise thing too, is that a state issue? Is that an ordinance thing that allows firefighters, go ahead.
There's a couple issues. One, to be a firefighter, you have to have a state certification, firefighter 1 and 2. Then there's some hazmat certifications that you have to hold. And so that's part of the reason. They also we don't have a integrated service. We have firefighters and we have EMS members. So the ideal way of doing this would be have a fully integrated service where you can ride 6 hours on an ambulance and then the rest of 18 hours on the fire truck and just rotate. The biggest question that comes into play is the firefighters are in a different pension system and the EMS is in a different pension system.
Yeah, we went down that.
Oh, I know, that's a rabbit hole to go down. You're
I
right.
think everybody here voted for that.
But that's an issue,
Yeah.
you know, because of how we're separated. And, you know, if I had to, you know, rewrite how the department was put together, we'd be riding firefighters on an ambulance, you know, back and forth. You know, it would also reduce the stress levels. Rather than working a 12-hour shift on an ambulance, you're going to work 6 hours in an ambulance and the rest of the time on a fire truck and just rotate back and forth.
How many I know you talked about the fire stations need some work because they were designed for horses. Are all our trucks currently like in good condition, or like how many of our trucks are not operating right now, fire trucks?
You know, I think our fleet right now is I'll say average condition, you know, average to a little bit above average. We're in a little bit better shape right now. As we receive a couple new trucks, it's going to help us. The only issue I have with our fleet is our reserve fleet. You know, if something breaks down, we've been able to maintain our frontline fleet with orders, but our reserve fleet has kind of dwindled because the trucks were used. They were to the point where they couldn't function anymore. So that's the biggest worry I have right now is our reserve fleet. I think we need to order a few new trucks and bulk up our reserve fleet.
Okay.
That's my concern.
And then on the EMT side, I know we contract some of it out. That's what I think you and like the Alderwoman was talking about. How many, I guess, of those ambulance that are ours, like are in good shape? Same with like fire trucks, where we would.
You know, we're in a fairly comfortable spot with our ambulances. You know, as long as we keep our order rate going, at any given time, I've got, you know, 5 or 6 reserve ambulances ready to go. You know, sometimes as high as 7 or 8. But no, but we've got to keep the momentum up. We can't say, okay, we're good to go and not order for 2 years because it's going to take me 2 years to get a truck.
Is that usually through the capital committee where you would? Okay.
Yes.
And you and the Alderwoman were talking about the ordinance that allows that, is it GMT fund?
GEMT, Ground Emergency Medical Transportation.
And you say currently that fund is only allowed for you to use it for capital improvement?
The way the ordinance reads, yes.
And if, I think the Alderwoman was asking if it were to change and expand it to salaries, what would that,
And I have to review the wording on the GEMT funding itself to make a decision on that, but let me see, Board of Investment. Yeah, that's something. There's Missouri Department of Social Services and the remainder of the purchase of capital assets and other equipment as related. You know, so it's not only trucks, it's, you know, 15 lead defibrillators, Stryker stretchers that, you know, that lift up and down, you know, automatic stretchers. It's equipment that we use on a daily basis to provide medical services.
Gotcha. Last question, then a comment. Not so much budget related, but now that it's in-house in the fire department, and we're coming up on, you know, 1 year of May 16th, the tornado. Could you explain a little bit of, so the system is now in-house at the fire department, correct?
The activation system?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you explain, I guess, what happened like last week with or was it
You mean
this
Monday?
week? Oh, yeah.
Monday?
Yeah, days fly with SEMA canceling and then it still went off since there's like, and to be honest, you know,
No, absolutely.
I'm glad that one more sirens are working. Glad that, you know, they're actually going off. And, you know, I think people are traumatized when you actually have an active storm going on and then it goes off. But could you just talk about what happened during that?
Right. We test the sirens, or the sirens are tested the first Monday of every month, 11 o'clock. This past Monday, which was what, May 4th. May 4th, we were set up to have the activation test. The activation, the monthly test, is automated. It's done by a computer console. As is the real activation is done in conjunction with the National Weather Service through an automated system that looks at the mapping of the city of St. Louis. It looks at the false boundaries that we provided. So if they determine that this weather is approaching, it touches the boundary, it sets the sirens off automatically. Monday, which was the test day, we had a little bit of rain in the area. We were in contact with the National Weather Service. When I say we, I mean our dispatch center, fire alarm dispatch, who monitors the weather, monitors the National Weather Service, and watches the tornado siren computer. The computer system that we have in dispatch is technically a monitor with a map of the city, and it shows where all the tornado sirens are. There's 60 of them. It shows which ones are working in a specific color. It shows which ones are not working in a specific color. Those tornado sirens are tested twice every day of the month to make sure that they're registering and communicating back with the activation system. So originally, the determination was made after discussing and looking at the weather patterns. Okay, we had rain in the area, but we were going to continue with the test. I mean, rain, they have to work in the rain. You know, people knew that we were going to test at 11 o'clock. We put that out on social media. At the last minute, 10:51 to be exact, I got a call from my supervisor, Director Dace, and he instructed me to not set the system off and don't test the sirens. Okay? So what we did, we had to go into the computer program, pull the drop downs, and basically disconnect the automatic system from activating the sirens for the test, which is a couple drop down boxes that you uncheck, if you will, to deactivate. Well, because of the time frame, this computer system had already started the initiation of the activation. So when we clicked the last box, yes, it shut the system down and it didn't activate the sirens at 11 o'clock. But it had already queued it up, so it was sitting there. So before we did anything else, we called the engineering firm who's doing the upgrade on all the tornado sirens, GTSI. We said, here's what we did. What's our next step to make sure we activate this properly? He goes, wait 90 minutes and then just re-queue the system, which we did. So 90 minutes went to 1:30. We reset the computer. It picked up where it left off, computers, and we had this verified with, and I'll get into that in a minute, but it sensed that it had an activation in there that it hadn't completed, so the computer completed the activation and set the sirens off at 1:35. When we talked to the programmer yesterday, who was the main programmer on this software, and we walked through, and he was able to get at every keystroke we made in the computer system, and we made them right. He didn't know that what we had done. We had found a loophole in his program. In other words, because we stopped it at this point, all we did was delay it because it was queued up. Then the computer came back around, grabbed it, and continued to queue. So that software designer is working on that problem.
Gotcha.
Okay? If we would have went ahead with the test, we wouldn't have had any issues. It would have went off. The tornado sirens would have sounded for 3 minutes, and that would have been the end of the test. But because we stopped it at that point, it was waiting there. As soon as we reinstituted it, it cycled through and kicked them off.
Okay. And when you guys are now, so colleagues have a little break, I guess with re-looking at it, I would say I noticed this go around, usually when the test happens afterwards or before, say there's a test, maybe I just didn't hear it this time, but when it did go off and was re-triggered, it wasn't that notification that this is just a test, and maybe because of the reboot and the...
Right, because we were trying to stop it.
Yeah.
Right.
And last question, has SEMA ever been under the fire department in your time or
No,
not?
not that I know of, no.
Has there ever been conversations of, in your time being chief of like merging those two?
Those conversations always pop up. It's, you look at best practices, you look at what the fire department does. Most of our command staff members are trained in National Incident Management System. So that's kind of what we do every day anyway. That's how we operate. When tornado hit, our members provided the incident support team. We do it every day. It's always conversation.
Gotcha. No more questions. I will say I love watching fire. I think you would be a great chief character on that because you're already so amazing here in the city of St. Louis, and just appreciate all the great work that you do.
I appreciate all your support, and I thank you very much. And the firefighters appreciate your support. So,
Thank you.
okay.
All right, I'll take a motion to recess until 12:35.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Motion passed. Or no, motion passed. I'd like to take a motion to enter back from recess.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We are back from recess as we wrap up the rest of the budget day. Today we will hear from Parks, Recs, and all the amazing people that is part of that department. One of my favorite ones, especially when I see Commissioner Hagelman. I don't know why I'm Hagley. Okay, I don't know why I'm butchering it, but she's amazing, and the rest of the team is too. But today we have the department. We have the director in front of us. Director, whenever you're ready, you may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, committee. We're here to discuss the budget for the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, which includes Brightside, St. Louis, and Soulard Market. If it's okay with the committee, I'll just do a very general, brief summary. And I'll introduce the folks that are here with me, hand it off to those section heads, and I'm here for questions as well. So if that works. So, working with the budget division and our department, let's just say we're very pleased with this budget. We know times are tough. The financial climate we're in, money doesn't grow on trees, no pun intended, with our department, but we're pleased with this, and we will relay a few concerns. So Parks, coming in, Kim Hagley with her budget and her team, she came in within about 27,000 of the targeted allocation, which I think is excellent. She does have some vacancies she can respond to here in a little bit, including limited term utility workers that cut grass in our 109 parks, and that started less than a month ago. One thing of note that Kim has been asking for about $350,000 the last at least 2, maybe 3 budget cycles, and has not received that. This year she has received that, and we're going to use that money for some regional park cutting, so that's great. And there's some other parks that are done contractually. Kim's budget's about 12.2, if you will, $12,200,000. Go on to recreation. Commissioner Joaquina Callion is here. Pretty much a static budget for recreation as well. It's exciting that Joaquina and her team's summer programs are starting in early June. Ideally, if we're staffed up adequately with lifeguards, the 3 outdoor pools would open right around Memorial Day, which, as you know, is coming up very quickly. Her general revenue budget's about 1.8, and she does have another budget or 2 that you're familiar with from the past, so we can answer any questions there. So she is in full pursuit of lifeguards, as are Kim and Alan Jankowski in Parks and Forestry for limited terms. Moving on to forestry, there was a great development with a recent amendment where we've been asking for streets took over our district debris operation, as you know, in 2019. So they started handling all debris then, and forestry had no capacity really to remove any debris in the city. And there's about 20 or 21 positions in all the accompanying equipment. Just recently, there was an amendment. Alan had asked for about 10 positions for operators and staff members to operate the equipment we were provided by CDA. Nothing worse than having equipment and no staff to run it. Alan, with the amendment to the budget, Alan received 2 construction equipment operators this year that'll start in July when we get them hired. 2 heavy equipment operators, and a systems analyst. Forestry's always been involved with CityView, LUSTAT, and now CityStat. So there's a heavy emphasis on metrics. So that position he's asked for years has now will be funded as of July 1. So that'll help with our new weed ordinance, thanks to the Board of Aldermen for passing that weed ordinance, which puts a little more teeth and punitive action on property owners with the fines, as you know. So those 5 positions are going to be a big improvement for us. Brightside St. Louis, that is, as you know, federally funded, CDA funded. Mary Lou Green is here. Oh, and I did say Alan Jankowski is our Commissioner of Forestry. Mary Lou Green is our program manager for Brightside St. Louis. She's at a budget about $438,000, pretty much static. She got what she needed. She's full on her graffiti positions, as you know. Or excuse me, she does graffiti removal in the city on non-park buildings. She's full with those 4 utility workers and a labor foreman, which is great. And so things are looking good with Mary Lou, so to speak. And finally, Soulard Market. Bob Ray is here. Bob is the Soulard Market manager, pretty much a static budget. In the past, we have been concerned with lack of security. Last year, when the park rangers were no longer with us and providing that, we switched and piggybacked, if you will, on an existing contract. So on Saturdays, we do have 2 security officers at Soulard, where we have thousands of visitors and customers. And Bob has 2 custodians. So it's basically a 3-person operation. He's at about $412,000 budget, pretty static. And the director's budget, which is what I'm in, is static as well at about $916,000. One thing I'll note before I step away and hand it off to Kim, if that works for the committee, we did ask for $250,000 in rec center security funds, and we continue conversations with the St. Louis Police Department. We haven't had any park rangers or any law enforcement presence whatsoever at our 7 rec centers, which is very concerning to me and is very concerning to us. We want to avoid public safety risk without any security presence at those centers. So we continue those conversations. Joaquina and I discussed it. She asked for $250,000 in this year's budget to combat that issue, and we were provided no funds. So there is no security, so to speak, at our rec centers, and that's 7 of them, and some of them right near in your wards, of course. So that is where I'll step away, if that works, and introduce Kim Hagley, Commissioner of Parks, unless there's any questions for me.
And also, I want to be clear, from Alan to Bob and the rec center and Brightside, this is probably one of my favorite departments because everybody's always super amazing, not only to work with, but very responsive back, even including yourself, Director. So what we'll do is we'll just go department by department. So we'll start with Parks, and then Kim will kind of present our budget, go in line of questions. I know there's a lot of departments that folks may have questions for, but yeah, we'll go per department and then go alders have any questions, and we'll go to the next one. So we'll start with Parks.
Thank you, Alderman Committee. I was remiss. Kara Hine is with us today. She's an executive assistant in the director's office. And there she is, sitting next to Mary Lou, so sorry.
As I'm Kim Hagley, you guys know. As Greg mentioned, I was very happy with my budget this time. I retained all of my positions, and I was also awarded the money to cut another regional park. And what that does is that frees up our staff to be able to concentrate more on our neighborhood parks. The regional parks are usually in the 250-acre and have a lot of amenities or trees, things like that, very time consuming. So this will free us up to do some additional care at the other neighborhood parks. Other than that, I don't really have much to say. Like I said, I do have vacancies, so I do want to mention that currently I'm at 25 limited term utility workers. Those are the seasonal staff that help us during the summer to pick trash, trim, move picnic tables, trash cans. If some are good enough, we've already moved 2 of those limited term utility workers into full-time positions. So that's a good feeder for us to fill those full-time positions. We get a chance to see how they work. If they're doing well, then we go ahead and move them into a permanent position. But I currently do have 10 utility workers that are vacant. I have a total of 16, and that includes like plumber, carpenter, park keeper, park maintenance, things like that. So we're still struggling, but we're making it happen. So we are already working 10-hour days, and with all the rain that we've had, we are going to start weekends starting next weekend, because this weekend is Mother's Day. So that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
I'll go in order of seniority. Start with Alderwoman Sanye, and I'll come back to Vice Chair Browning.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello. I am always really brag-worthy about you, Ms. Hagley. I have been impressed with you since I've joined, just the amount of things that you oversee and manage yourself. Honestly, I wish that you actually had more support than you have. I've really felt, I've felt that way for a long time. I know we've made a couple of changes in the budget, but I'm always amazed, like literally your callback rate and email response rate, in addition to all the things you have to see, I'm always very impressed by that. So I wanted to make sure that I just start off by saying that on the record, that I really appreciate both yourself and Mr. Hayes for always, somehow managing to stay on top of things, and always also managing all the responsibility that is needed. Some of my questions are just kind of about the specific of things. There's a public safety sales tax fund. Well, I'll come back to that. I guess in general, I can just start with the forestry division. Some of you all's professional services. Last year, the amount was $1,525,000, and this year it's $1,386,396. Am I correct to assume that this is for contract work?
Yes. So mine went from 607 last year to 998, and that's for that additional regional park to be cut. It'll have 14 cuts during the season, so that's why mine went up.
And you feel like this amount is sufficient for all the cutting that you need to do?
This will go a long way to help us. Honestly, I don't want to be greedy. So we've kind of been plugging away at this for probably 5-6 years now or better, where we have added additional parks as needed. So we have, these are usually the bigger parks. Not all of them are regional, but north and south, the bigger swaths of grass cutting that take a lot of time or have a lot of handwork, meaning the trimming. So at this point, I'm very satisfied. This is, like I said, the 3rd year that I've asked for this, and Mr. Payne funded it. So, like I said, it'll go a long way. So, I'm fine.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to just clarify, because I see that, and then there's also a forestry division use tax, and also another professional services line that's under Fund 56600. Do you separate them? Is it that one fund is for like larger parks or larger projects, and another, I'm just curious because they both are for professional services, but they're different line items.
So my 1,220,000 account is mine, and that's where I have $998,000. So that's my contractual services for grass cutting.
Okay.
That's just for me, that line item.
Okay. My next one might be more for forestry than for parks, so I think that might be good for Ms. Hagley. Thank you.
Did you say you
I
had
also-
one for?
I'd also like to mention, because last year you wanted me to get more help, and I just want to let the committee know that I have gotten that help. And I think last year I mentioned my executive assistant Denise, and this year I have added a construction and maintenance manager. You all know Zach Fortune from the street department. He is now with me, and he is overseeing a lot of things, and we're getting a lot of things moving. Our CSB response rate is up, and he's only been here about 3 months. So things are starting to come together, and I'm building that team slowly but surely. So I think you'll see more of an improvement in this next year.
Thank you.
Did I hear you say you had some for forestry and parks? I know.
Yes,
Well, if it's forestry, we'll wait. But is parks still?
I think I've asked all my ones that were specifically for parks.
Okay. Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Hagley. I actually don't have any questions. I have some questions for some of the other divisions. I just want to say thank you. I know the residents are very happy that we got the splash pad up last year at McDonald Park, and I know that we've worked through some requests, and they've all gotten done, so I just appreciate the hard work. I know it's not always easy, and I'm sure getting 10 emails from me is not easy as well. So, no, but I really appreciate you to Director Hayes.
That's what we're here for. So.
Could you explain to me, Commissioner, I worked or brought some fun legislation that had a lot of the city speaking with this food truck legislation, and one of it was this ordinance that is like this downtown vending district park fund. Could you explain what that is and what that entails?
So my understanding is that is funded through downtown vending, whether it be food trucks or the street vendors. And the only thing that money is used for is City Garden. We split the insurance fees with the Gateway Foundation. So that's our portion that we pay for them, because they manage that park, but the land technically belongs to the city. So there's an MOU agreement contract that says that that's what our portion is. So
And I know there was a Phyllis Young ordinance. As I've been diving through all these different ordinances for food trucks, it's like 12. It's a hot topic to talk about. I guess if there was more of those food trucks and I don't know how that fund is collected, it could be a potential that fund could grow.
So I will never get more than I need for the city garden insurance. So that's a question, I think, for Paul Payne or the comptroller's office. That's been that same amount since I've been here for the last 11 years.
Okay.
It doesn't fluctuate. And I think that's what you're looking at to see if there's more, where is that money? But I'm only ever appropriated that money that you see there for that insurance.
And I know the food trucks kind of go through the street departments. Just more homework on myself of when working through the ordinance and seeing that, I was like, what is this vending downtown fund? And, okay.
I'm being very honest when I say that's where it comes from, but I don't know specifically how it all works. I just know that I get that money for every year for the insurance.
Gotcha. I appreciate all that you do. Like Alderwoman Tanya said, being kind of new alder, you've been very helpful during the process of just, questions on parks. One of the great things that I love about your department when it comes to Ward Capital, there's like that match. So if you ever are trying to upgrade parks, your department only, I think, is the only one that kind of has that like 25 or 15, whatever the percentage is, but match so that we can always spread our money a little further. Thank you for the work with the pavilion that's coming to Loretta Hall Park.
Going in soon. in the last couple of weeks.
I seen the equipment was there.
Yes.
Last week, and I was like, I just talked to her. I know we got to do the other stuff, but that's gonna be great. And then the individuals at Windsor Park was extremely excited about that new upgrade. So just thank you for your leadership and all you do to help the board, but ultimately help residents in the city of St. Louis to have beautiful, nice, upgraded parks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, I guess we will go to forestry. And Commissioner, just state your first and last name, and you can just dive on into the budget.
Alan Jankowski, Commissioner of Forestry. So like Greg mentioned, the big thing for us is we have 5 new positions to help us, 4 of those positions to help kind of remove debris that we create when we cut vacant building, vacant lots, and haul that debris off instead of sitting it on the curb or sitting it in the alley and then waiting for the street department to come pick that up. So we'll be able to do a complete service now with our vacant building, vacant lot cutting. Besides that, I'm open for questions. I'm sure you guys have some, sounds like.
Mm-hmm. All right, I will start in order of seniority, and I'll go with Alderwoman Tanya.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, I'm about to say your name wrong. Jankowski. Hello, Mr. Jankowski. Sorry, forgive me. It's the St. Louis accent. I always start with just gratitude. Thank you. You're very responsive. I know we're about to talk quite a bit because we're about to embark upon budget season, and we're going to talk about all the places you want trees cut. And I've seen just some of the improvements to our process, and I also appreciate, I know at one point I was kind of raising a desire for certain trees to really be considered, and I feel like some of those things have been incorporated as well, so I appreciate that advocacy. My residents are very strongly about their native trees and things of that nature, so we're glad to see some of those. A lot of my, well, I guess my first specific question is just in regards to hazardous tree removal. This is something that's needed all across the city. We've got a couple of, all across the city, but definitely have observed it in the 7th Ward. And last year it was funded at $50,000, and this year it looks like you're getting $30,000. And so I just wanted to see what was this increase or decrease, why the decrease? Is it that you think there's less of a need? Have you gotten through some of the things, or?
No, there's not less of a need. There was there was funding for, like, in the tornado recovery office that was doing a lot of private tree removals, and there was also Alderwoman Boyd did a $800,000 ARPA grant or ARPA funds to take down hazardous trees. So then they were doing it for free.
So it's that you got other funds
when we take them down. Excuse me.
So it's just that you got other funds to meet that need.
There was other funding out there. So I don't want our program to go out there and take down private trees and then charge individuals when there's other pots of money out there.
So in general, is this fund, what's in your budget, is that usable on private property?
Yes, the $30,000 is, yes.
Okay.
So we would, you go out there, we get homeowners that call in and say, hey, there's a dead tree hanging over the swimming pool, and then we'll have an arborist go out there and investigate. And if it needs to be removed, we'll send a homeowner a removal notice or trim notice. And then if it's one of the top 10, 15 trees, it just depends how much the quote comes in, and then we'll remove those trees or we'll trim them. And then our contractor does that. It's not city staff doing that. It's a contractor that goes in there and cuts that down.
Understood. Is that the process for all private property, or is it the same whether it's LRA or whether it's, I know that's the cities. I'm specifically just trying to understand. Yeah. There's been some differences in terms of what you all can do in the tornado impacted area because of some of, I'm assuming if it's LRA or private or public, but I'm just wanting to parse that out.
Yeah, it's just private. So if it's LRA, then we notify LRA, and they have a pot of money where they take down their own trees. And I know it gets a little fuzzy there because I'm talking about larger trees that are probably 10 inches or bigger. If it's smaller trees, we kind of consider that brush, and if it's on LRA property, the forestry would come in and kind of cut that down or push it over.
Okay, my next question is just about the utility workers. I see that you're budgeted for 42, but you requested 65.
That's what I asked for. Yeah, so we were thinking, kind of talking with the mayor's office about kind of eliminating part-time staff and then boosting our full-time utility workers and then having those staff work year-round. So it didn't make it into this budget, but I think continuing talks as we could, as you all know, we could remove brush and
So the utility
limbs.
workers would be under your would be
Yeah.
employees, less, you would have to contract less out. You would have more in-house staff?
Correct. We were looking to cut the contract money and limited term staff and then boost our full-time staff was our plan.
Understood. And I see that you have 700,000 budgeted for overtime.
Yeah.
Is there a specific position that you think would be utilizing that overtime? Because I'm seeing that the utility. So in general, with that $700,000 budget line, is there, I'm just curious, like what was the overtime to kind of offset maybe not getting those full-time, all the full-time positions that you want, or there a specific like area in your budget that position is understaffed, so you know you'll need overtime for that specific position?
Yeah, so the overtime, so in our tree section, it would be the crews that go out in the middle of the night and take care of storm calls. But then on our weed side, there's such a workload that we typically work 58-hour weeks. So they'll work 10-hour days, Monday through Friday, and then they'll put in 8 on Saturday. And that's pretty much all of that 700,000 goes to all the full-time weed control employees.
Understood. Your per performance line item budget, it looks like you requested 40,000. I was just curious about what this is for and if your given amount meets that need.
Professional services?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when I put in there 40,000, I was looking to take all that money and put it toward full-time staff, but
So they
like I
didn't give
said,
you as
that
many
didn't.
full-time staff, so you gave you more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll keep our contractors rolling.
Okay, thank you. That concludes my question.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Browning?
Commissioner, good to see you.
Alderman?
It was also nice to see you at the O'Fallon tree planting event a few weeks ago. And then again, shortly after that, I feel like I run into you more often than not. And that's because you're always out there doing good work. So
Thank you.
really appreciate. The other one, the seventh, asked a lot of my questions about the positions. And so I'll just use this time to say I really appreciate seeing that this budget has more money for forestry this year, especially knowing the work we have to do post-tornado to restore that tree canopy. But my knowledge of this is that there's always going to need to be that effort to renew our tree canopy, because you can't just plant it all this year. We have to be planting it year after year after year so that we have a healthy canopy that lasts and doesn't all die at the same time. I'm curious what you're seeing with the struggle with what the tornado has done to our tree canopy. There's a number of trees on private property that I think are not being addressed, that sometimes people are getting confused by. They see it and they think the city's not doing anything, but when I see it, I think that tree's on private property, and that's a little more difficult. But there has been limited cases where you can handle trees on private property. Could you maybe speak to the rules around that?
Like down trees are hazard trees?
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess kind of what I was speaking of earlier is if there's a hazard tree on private property, forestry goes out and does a service. A lot of times people say we do nothing. We go out there, we send an arborist, a certified arborist, to inspect the tree, and then they'll put it in as no service necessary, or removal, or a trim, okay? And then we'll send a letter to that homeowner. And so that's official records that this individual's put on notice that they need to trim their tree. They need to remove their tree. And if something would happen, then at least there's that paper trail there that the owner was notified he or she had a hazardous tree on his property or her property. Down trees on private property gets a little tricky, even if it falls from another person's property, wherever that limb lands or tree lands, it becomes property of that homeowner. So that homeowner is responsible for removing that debris. We would hope that they would be a good neighbor and take care of their previously owned property and take care of that. But that's about where it lays for forestry. We don't enter private property to kind of remove any debris. I know the tornado recovery team office has some funding, and I'm not sure if they go on to private property or if they, when we were working with the storm, the tornado, everybody had to kind of push it to the curb to that public right away and then grab it at that time.
Well, we certainly appreciate the efforts around the response there. There was a stunning amount of debris that was removed. A lot of that was wooded material, I'll call it, trees, just other branches and debris and stuff. And I definitely saw it in my ward, and I saw it throughout the city where people were able to move that out, and you all did an excellent job of going out and collecting that and helping neighborhoods just get back to looking a little cleaner. The tree canopy is going to take decades to fully restore in some areas, but we always are planting trees so that we can enjoy their shade in the next generation. And so to me, I think tree planting is one of those ultimate acts of community service, because you really are not doing it for yourself today, but you're doing it for generation. And we want to be able to provide everything you need to just keep doing that, because cities with lots of trees and a good tree canopy are very pleasant places to be. It does everything from limit health effects like asthma and other things, but also lower temperatures for cooling and heating, and so there can be just all sorts of benefits, and your division is such an important part of that. So I think you know how much I appreciate you. I don't need to go on about it, but let us know however we can support. And like I said, I'm glad to see there's a little more money for you this year, but we'll hopefully keep that going because we want to see that return.
Yeah, and I will say with the tree planting, forestry's working closely with the tornado recovery office to look at all the trees we lost, and our goal is to plant those back 3 to 1. So on our streets and our parks, we know in a lot of those areas there wasn't a whole lot of canopy to begin with, but we lost in the neighborhood of like 5,000 trees. So the goal is to have 15,000 trees go back into those areas and hopefully restore some of that canopy or even grow that canopy that wasn't there. So Mike Ziegler and Jason O'Malley from my team is working on that, and hopefully come up with a good plan moving forward here.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Thank you, Commissioner Jankowski. Most of my questions. They asked great questions. So I think so first I want to also say thank you. I know that I also have a very engaged ward, and I appreciate the adaptability and flexibility and willingness to collaborate with several neighborhoods in my ward, and I owe you a phone call about another one. Okay. But I appreciate that, and I know our residents appreciate that. And just when I had my meeting with BPS, we talked about tree planting, and I think that the department planted 100 more trees than the previous year. So thank you, and again, I'm sure my residents will also appreciate that.
Well, thank you funding it as well. We appreciate it.
It's team effort. The only real question I have specifically for budget is I noticed that you, if I read it right, you added a government service analyst.
Yes.
Could you, sounds like you're excited maybe, could you
We
talk
are
about that?
About that
Huh.
one, yes. So we collect a lot of data within CityWorks and our team, our arborists, and weed control. And sometimes we have all this data, but we don't have somebody on staff that's just designated to kind of analyze all that data and see, and kind of maybe help managers kind of direct how we use our labor and what we should truly be focusing on instead of, I think our managers get hung up on just operations and managing folks. We don't step back and look at, okay, where are we headed? And are we on course? Are we off course? So we hope this individual will not only help forestry, but help us reach out to street department, work with the parks department, with Parks Division, sorry, and other departments out there, the building division, to hopefully streamline all our processes and help us coordinate and communicate with other divisions as well and other departments. So we're really excited about that, to kind of have that individual kind of crunch those numbers for us.
Well, I'm excited too, and I'm sure, as you know, my ward will be excited for data. Just, I know you haven't hired this person, correct?
No.
Well, do you know if the data, this might be something to ask next year, but will they be uploading it to GIS software? Do you have a vision for where some of this data might live or be shared, maybe specifically?
Yeah, I think as we share kind of in our weed control, we have a cut list and stuff like that. It would be nice to kind of give some vision of where we're going with our tree section and how we're cutting and what trees we're tackling next. So I know I'm not answering your question totally, but when it comes to computers, it kind of goes over my head pretty quick. But yeah, we're hopeful that we be able to communicate with our residents a lot cleaner, a lot clearer, and a lot of this stuff that lives on CityWorks, maybe we can have a clearer picture on CityWorks to help the citizens know where we're going and where we've been. So.
Well, great. Well, I look forward to it, and that is all the questions I have. Thank you
Okay.
again for being here.
I have no questions. Also, thank you, Commissioner,
Okay,
for
thank you.
always just being responsive, like my colleague said. And when there are issues with trees, outside citizens putting them in CSB, being able to email you, you're always fast to respond back. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Alderman. Appreciate it.
All right. Next, we will go to recreation centers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Joaquina Calian.
I'm going to just ask you, Ms. Joaquina, to get a little more on the mic so they can hear you. There you go.
Sorry. I am Joaquina Calian, Commissioner of Recreation. So I am overall pleased with my budget. The only concern I had was the one that Greg brought up, was not being able to have security for the rec center. But overall, my budget is great, and I'm pleased with it at this time. So I'm open for questions.
All right. In order of seniority, Vice Chair Browning.
Thank you. I don't have any rec centers in my ward. I have one just outside of it. But I guess my question is just a general question, which is, if we were to have a new rec center be produced, I think that would probably significantly increase your budget needs. Like, are we struggling to just account for the rec centers we have now, or do you think there's room to create more in the future?
Oh, we would definitely need more for the buildings themselves. Right now, I've been working with Parks just renovating our buildings, and it's been costing us a lot of money to get our buildings back up to par, but we've been working on it. As you know, Cherokee is down right now because of renovations. It's getting a new roof. We redid the gym. We've redone the locker rooms, flooring, painting. So we're hoping to have it back up sometime this fall after we finish with the roofs. The roof being replaced. We also replaced the roof at Marquette, Bowles, 12th and Park, Tandy, and also Buddha and Gamble. And if funds are available, we will do the same for Buddha. I think when it comes to staffing, right now I have 33 positions open. So a lot of those are part-time positions to be able to run our programs with our youth. But we do also have RFPs to help cover some of those programs as well.
And were many rec centers affected by the tornado, and did they need repairs from that? I think when I'm at the O'Fallon Rec Center, which I know is a partnership with the YMCA, I think that building was mostly thankfully spared, even though O'Fallon Park was hit pretty hard. And I'm always impressed by that. I think it's a great rec center, and it's a huge asset for that area. I'm actually going to be there later tonight for a water town hall. So it's much used as well. But were any of the rec centers hit by the tornado and needed repairs?
Yes, our World Recreation Center did had damages to their windows as well as the roof, and also Tandy had some damage to their roof as well.
And I've had the opportunity to be in quite a few of the centers around the city, and I know there's a need for a lot of maintenance needs in those facilities and just general upgrades. Some of them are quite old, and Wohl is one of those ones. It's a beautiful building, but has its own unique challenges that I'm hoping that we're going to be able to address. But my understanding is that hopefully there'll be some money, maybe even some Rams money that is going to go to help. But I think those discussions are ongoing. But have you found the mayor's office and other city leaders to be relatively receptive and helpful with the rec centers and their needs?
Oh, I agree. They have, especially when it comes to the budget. We were, they allowed us to continue to have the funds to go in and be able to upgrade some of these facilities. And not only that, we're updating our Tuskegee Airmen football field, which is one of the only city football fields in the city that we have for it is actual turf field. So we're getting a new turf field for our youth sports and things. It's right next to Tandy. It also sustained some damage during the tornado. We lost bleachers and things, so we do have the funds to now rebuild that.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I know people are looking at we're almost at a year anniversary, and I live near Forest Park, so I'm always walking in Forest Park, and I still see the fences down. I still see the tree stumps. I don't. This narrative that we're fully recovered in some areas just isn't true. I think we're still struggling in many areas, but I hope we can get the resources that are necessary. The rec centers are such a wonderful, wonderful asset for our, and the programming that you do there is essential to keeping youth doing good things and forming good relationships and not getting into trouble elsewhere. So I think we always talk about the need to fund the rec centers, and I just want to express my support for making sure that we continue to offer those amazing resources for all of our residents. So thank you so much, and Chair Aldridge, you're back, so hand it back to you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sanye.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, nice to see you. I actually did some boxing classes for a while at some of our recreations.
She scares me.
There's a lot of anger during these unprecedented times. I need a healthy outlet. You guys have programming available. I went. Coach T gave me some great boxing classes, so I would give an excellent shout out to that. I think my specific question is just around some of the specifics of recreational programming. You all have $480,000 for professional services, and I was just curious if you could expound for us on how these contracted funds, what they would apply for, and what specific professional services for.
Okay, so we do put out the RFP, and we get anybody from sports to academics. They put in for a RFP, they get chosen. So this year, those funds will be covering our Key Carnival, which will be working with in our summer camps, helping provide kids with fun ways to learn literacy, as well as in cursive writing, something that we've lost in our school system. And also, they will also be working with just the basic phonics and reading. We'll also have a chess program where kids can learn to play chess. We have our urban golf, so kids are learning how to play golf. We also have our Protect Your Peace, where you're able to come, both adults and youth, learn how to defend yourself as well as learn martial arts. We have a karate class that we offer. We also have wrestling.
How do you select, but you put a request for proposal out, how do you select projects? And specifically, does youth have a role at all in selecting which programming options are there that are available?
So what we do is we put out the RFP, we ask for a variety. Anything that you're that we think kids may like, or adults, because we want our rec centers to be geared toward community, both youth and adults. So we go through the process, they submit applications, and we have a board that goes through them, read through. We also have
You said you have a board?
Yeah, the committee. So it is someone from the comptroller's office, someone from the mayor's office.
Right. So like a PSA committee?
Yes.
But do children have a role at all? How do you make sure that the programming that you're offering is in alignment with what children are interested in doing?
So what we do, we ask the kids, we do basic surveys on what is it that you want to do, what is it that you're missing, and we go from there. And we just...
Like surveys that are just widely available in the recreation centers,
Yes.
surveys that are online?
It's surveys that we do with the kids. So like at summer camp. So at the end of summer camp, we ask the kids, what is something that you enjoyed doing summer camp? Would you like to see it come back next year, or is it something you wanted to see different? We also asked the parents at that time, how did camp go? Was it something you enjoyed, and would you like to see it expand to the fall, or would it be something that you just like in the summer? So we get feedback from the kids and from the parents, but when it comes to selecting the committee, no, we do not have any kids participating on that.
It might be an
that time.
opportunity there to look at including a youth council. A conversation we have all the time is just making sure that the things that we're not speaking for people, that the folks who we're offering things to, especially for young people, because their desires and interests change rapidly, that they're getting into in ways. So, that's not necessarily specific to the budget process, but I think it might be us worth having conversations to figure out how to bring the youth council into that conversation so that we can make sure that the programming that we're offering is something that they're really interested in. They might even have some cool ideas. I know I've learned a lot from some of the youth that are in the 7th when I went to visit somewhere recently were all on the e-game things that were not popular in my time, but they were making money and it's a whole online internet. So I just think, that might be a conversation for another time. How do, for adult senior programming and youth programming, do these programs usually reach their capacity? Like let's say you put out the programming for the boxing and for the swimming for the kids. Do they usually reach their capacity? Is there somewhere where we could go to see in real time the offering versus the utilization?
Yes, we cover all that in our reg desk where we take attendance. And we do fill up fast, and some classes don't. I say I don't measure my class based on how many people actually attend. Is the benefit of the kid or the adult? Are they somewhere safe? Also, are we providing a different variety of things? Because we have done the e-games as well, because we know that's big now. Our biggest thing is not only being able to provide those things, but also having people put in a proposal that say that they can actually provide these services, because we don't get a lot. We had this last time, we had 19, and out of the 19, I had 3 that were wrestling, and we already had wrestle. Then we had another one that had golf. Well, we already have golf. So it's also about what people are willing to provide. It's how we...
So specifically in reference to what Alderman Browning mentioned, we are having conversations around RAM settlement funds, and I'm very interested in making sure that some of the funds go to our youth. And I think the conversation currently amongst us is that recreation centers may be the may be the most efficient way for the city to do that, since we don't, the school district is its own independent political subdivision.
Yeah.
But the challenge that I've had in having some of those conversations with colleagues or other elected officials is they just kind of have questions about how much are the classes that are being offered or programs offering, how much are they actually being utilized? So there is a place that I could go, or maybe you could send some information that could show us. Like, I know on the website you can see all, like, I can go there and I can see Booter Summer Park, Booter boxing classes. I can see it kind of per facility,
Yes.
but I can't see how many people actually enrolled. I can't see like some of the specific programming details to kind of help me with my advocacy on this end of the conversation.
Oh, definitely, because we keep like I said, we have our rate desk track. It tells us how many people are signing in per day in the rate centers, how many people are participating in which programs. So we do have a way to collect that data so that you are able to share with everyone. We share our monthly report with the CDA, showing them all our different programs and who are participating.
Okay, well, it's excellent. It looks like I'll just send you an email and we'll connect afterwards. Thank you
Yes.
for your service to our city.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Velasquez?
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I don't really have any questions. I echo, I think, some of the bigger questions my colleagues talked about, and just making sure that asking the questions are how can we support the rec centers in supporting the young people specifically, but everybody in our city. Like Alderman Browning, I don't have a rec center in my ward. I have quite a few parks, so I don't have quite the first hand experience that other older people do, but I think that if we're talking about these bigger questions about not just about crime, but about, all the things that we can actually do to support people and about violence prevention. Certainly the rec centers are a part of that. And if we don't fund them, then we're not really addressing the full problem. So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your time, and I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I don't have any questions either. Looks like your budget is straightforward. Outside of, I think, the professional services you requested, but I think the Alderwoman talked about that. So thank you for what you do. That information, I think that the Alderwoman asked for, like some of the data on the rec centers would be helpful. I know there are RAMS conversations happening, and there is some advocacy for some to go to rec centers. And I think, everyone support rec centers, but want to make sure, I think in a time where we want to do something for youth, like I think a lot of us who aren't young anymore, including myself, say this is what it should be for young people. And it's like, are the young folks going to the rec centers? Is it, using this money for new programming like the esports or video games or whatever it is? But I think that that data would be helpful to help figure out what the funds could be used for as we're about to have RAMS 2.0 again. And I do see Commissioner from Parks hand up some, but.
No, come on, Cam.
So while Joaquina handles the programming, we work together for the maintenance of the buildings and things like that. And what we're running across now is there has been so much delayed maintenance that we are running into some real problems. And the Capital Committee has been very gracious with us with some capital money for pools and heating and cooling and some boilers. But as Joaquina mentioned, Cherokee is closed. While she's doing some interior work, we have some major structural issues with the roof. And so what we get for maintenance of those buildings is about $550,000 that I have to use over not just 7 rec centers, but I still have the 2 YMCA rec centers. So the money that I'm using is for things that are kind of broke fix. Again, we had FEMA money for some of the roofs, and not FEMA, I'm sorry, ARPA money for some of the roofs, and CDA stepped up to do some of the other ones. So like I said, and the money we're getting for Tuskegee Field is like one-time money, so that's gone after this. We fought hard to retain that funding, and it's now in the works, but just wanted to let you know that Joaquina's got the programming side of it down, but we are going to need some more help with the maintenance of the rec centers because they're 60, 70 years old, and pools were original to the buildings, and so there's a lot of work to do there just to keep the building in shape. They all need to be tuck pointed, which will be a huge undertaking. So if we don't have the building, then we don't have anywhere to do the programming. So,
And I know you don't have the numbers in front of you, but if you had to say a number for like the maintenance of all the building.
like I said, we've only touched the pools, the boilers, and some heating and cooling, and that was about $5 million. And so we started tuck pointing. This is how Cherokee came about. We started tuck pointing Cherokee, and it literally, the face of the bricks are falling off. And then we found out that the metal roof structure over the pool, when we took off the concrete panels doing the tuck pointing, that the metal roof, or the metal structural portion of the roof, is in desperate need. Like, can't do without it, and I have no idea what that number is going to be right now. I'm just waiting on the assessment. So I would imagine, and what I've asked for in the past is like $1 million rec center.
Per rec center?
Per rec center.
And we have,
I can give you a list of, an estimated list for each rec center to know that. And like I said, I know we're not going to do that all at once. I get that, unless we get money like Rams money or like we did with the ARPA money. The ARPA money saved the.
Gotcha.
It kept them open. So.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we will move on to, we could do Brightside.
And I had two comments. Alderwoman, the same questions you were asking, almost the exact same questions. Joaquina and I met with Alex at CityStat last week, and we were delving into even more those details that you were referring to. So we have a new software program we're looking at now, and Joaquina has a meeting on that tomorrow. So we will definitely get you that information we already have, and even better moving forward. And if I can take the opportunity, I don't want to embarrass her, but if you don't know already, after 36 years, Mary Lou Green is retiring from the city of St. Louis on June 1st, and I'd like to thank her for her service.
That's very kind. Thank you, Greg. So I'm Mary Lou Green. I work with Operation Brightside. Like Greg said, I've been here for 36 years.
Ms. Green, can you bring the mic to you so people at home can hear about all about your 36 years?
Yes. Mary Lou Green, Operation Brightside. We are CDBG funded. One of the things we do most in your wards is our graffiti removal program, and we have a staff of 5 people that do that, and we are fully staffed at this time. My position will be transitioning. We'll be looking for a new director, program manager too, and then we're also looking for administrative assistant. Gwen McFarland stepped down after 42 years. So it's a big transition year at Brightside, but we're going to continue to do what we do to make our city cleaner and greener.
Cleaner and greener is what you've been doing for a while, so thank you for your great work. We just had a neighborhood cleanup in Hyde Park, and we used materials from Brightside, so thank you. Going to order of seniority, Alderwoman Tanya.
Thank you for your service, Ms. Green. 36 years is such a long time. It's only been 3 years for me, and I'm already starting to get some gray hairs and things like that. So thank you for sticking it out and making it work. I can't imagine. I just have the same general question for you that I have for everyone else, kind of unpacking what her performance line is. For Brightside, it's $115,330. So I just would like to get more information on what that's going to go towards.
We have, Operation Brightside has 4 utility workers that are per performance. Their primary responsibility is removing graffiti. So they are the crew that removes the graffiti. They're per performance because they work year round, but they only work when it's above 35 degrees. So we can either paint over graffiti or power wash it off of brick or concrete.
Okay, and those are staff, those are utility workers.
They're utility workers, but they are per performance staff, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. That concludes my questions.
Thank you.
And the per performance just, it means not necessarily like full-time, right? They're
They are not full-time,
part-time,
correct.
and they don't get like city benefits since.
That's correct.
Okay. Alderman Velasquez?
I don't have any other questions for you. Thank you for your years of service, and I hope that we can find somebody with the perfect name, whoever comes after you. No, I'm kidding, but well, sort of. It is apropos, but no, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And last but not least, Mr. Bob Ray with Soulard Farmers Market. Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. I'm always happy to come up and talk about Soulard Farmers Market. If you don't mind, I'll just say a few things about it and about our budget, which is, you know, a bare bones budget that gets 3 employees that run a market 5 days a week, keep it pretty clean, and deal with about 100 vendors that come to the market every week, about 10,000 people that go through there. It's amazing to have Soulard Farmers Market owned by the city and operated by the city. If it wasn't, we would have lost it a long time ago. So there's a reason why it's the oldest continuous market west of the Mississippi River. Hard times, good times. If it wasn't for the city putting in $7 million in capital improvements in the last 3 years, we would be losing this market at some point close in the future. So I want you to know I appreciate that, and that and all the improvements that we've had over the last couple of years, which are tuck pointing, a brand new roof. We've got electricians in there right now redoing the electric and all the different stands. It's 147 stands. It's a big deal. We had 3 electric fires last year. All of the electric's getting fixed. It's taking the market out of danger. As far as this operational budget goes, there's only a couple changes from last year. One of them is professional services. Like the recreation centers, just as the new year started last year, we lost our park rangers, just got pulled and left us without security. So we moved some stuff in the budget around, and we hired some private security to be there on Saturdays. Probably not as great as having park rangers or police officers there, but it's good to have something. For the most part, you know, everybody behaves themselves at Soulard Farmers Market. It's a family place, but occasionally things happen. The only other thing on here of note is facility and ground services. You'll notice that it stays the same year after year and will remain the same in the next couple years because we signed a 5-year contract with no 3% increase with Republic to empty our trash, which is one of our biggest bills. Other than that, everything's pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions?
Woman Tanya?
I don't have any questions. I do just want to say I also love the Soulard Market. Me and the Alderwomen of the 8th are going to be taking a field trip there very soon. And I'm just glad that we have it. I think the investments, the capital improvements have been very helpful. And yeah, I'm just grateful that the city has that asset, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I was going to say,
tours all the time. Just give me an email, and I'll walk you around and give you the song and dance.
I was going to say, if you connect with them, I took the tour when I was a state rep, and there's a fun, actually a gym above the market, which is probably, could be like a fun trivia question that most people don't know about.
I
But
do have an important follow-up. Is there any food involved in that tour, or is that?
Make her pay. Make her pay.
Make her pay double? Yeah, there's about 23% of our stands are prepared or packaged foods, so there's lots of food. You
Okay,
can
we'll just
catch
discuss
an
it
apple.
offline.
And I think they take cash via credit card, all those Venmo,
Yeah.
Cash App. So you
Yeah.
got plenty of options, Alderwoman.
Chairman.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
They're modern farmers, that's correct.
I don't have any questions, but I also like food. So anything you can bring back or share.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Ray. Like you say, I think Soulard Market is like a very cool, unique thing we got. My mama used to love going down there and getting her green seeds from down there. You just can't get them anywhere. They got some really good green seasoning. And thank you for your commitment to the market, and recommend all colleagues to take a tour of the market. Sounds like the 7th and 8th is doing it, and you didn't get an invite, all the way from the 6th, nor did I. But maybe we could take our own tour. It's been a while, but thank you for the work you do.
You're all invited, thank you.
I just want to thank the committee for their time today. We really appreciate your positive feedback. I want to thank our team behind me, but not only behind me, our team that works every day that aren't here today. So the kind words are appreciated, and we are here for you.
Thank you, Director. Like I think you can tell from this committee, every department that alders reach out to within your team has been very responsive and very easy to work with. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your staff leadership and everybody that makes the city a better place because of the individuals that work with you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. All right. And last thing, order of the day today for budget items. I know you can get out, Kim. She goes, wait, I got more. We have the treasurer's office. See the treasurer here with his amazing team. He can come on up and introduce himself, and also introduce the amazing staff he have with him, and then you may proceed within your budget, Mr. Treasurer.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay. I'll be more formal. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name's Adam Lane. I have the pleasure of serving as the treasurer for the city of St. Louis. I have members of my staff here. Too many to name, but members of my parking division, treasury staff, executive staff. Yeah, we got everyone here, and a lot of people watching online as well. The presentation is up there, and you all have a copy, so I'm ready when you all are.
When you are.
All right, so we can go to the next slide. I always like to give, or one back, I always like to give a overview of what we're gonna be talking about. Well, one slide back for the table of contents, cool. So I'll be starting with just an introduction of the office, very briefly, and then describing the parking division as an enterprise fund. Then I'll be going through the parking budget for you, so where we ended last year, what we're projecting for next year, as well as a snapshot, 10-year snapshot of our debt balance and reserves on the parking side. Discuss any updates and new projects that we have, and then give you the additional budgets under our purview, which would be in your board book, and that's for the Treasury Department and the newest department that we have with the Gateway ID. And then open up to any questions that you all have. Can go to the next slide. All right, so that's me. So 3 main functions of our office. So doing the banking and managed investment services for the city. So we support our city departments on that side, and then also look to grow the investment accounts for the city of St. Louis, all of which is booked back to general revenue and provides income for the city to be able to use in its operating budget. And then, of course, managing the parking division, we have around or just under 8,000 metered spaces all across the city, as well as a few residential parking districts. And then we also have a little north of 15 garages and lots that we manage across the city as well. And then, of course, we do financial empowerment services. The goal is to have whole home financial literacy and be able to connect folks to the financial resources and capital that they need to live their best financial life. And I also want to thank this board for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you all with last month, with April being Financial Literacy Month or Money Smart Month. and being able to share a little bit about how on the policy side, you all can continue doing the good work of making sure that we're economically empowering all of our residents in the St. Louis region. So the parking division as an enterprise fund, essentially what that means is we operate as a fee generating office, and we don't cost the taxpayers any dollars to do that. So we don't get any funding for the parking division in terms of our budget from the city's general revenue or from the city's tax dollar, from constituent tax dollars. So anything that we make, we're allowed to spend on our costs. But if we don't make the money, then we can't spend it. So I won't be coming to you to ask for money to fund the parking division. By state statute, we also 40% of our profits go back to general revenue. So that is things that don't go to our expenses, essentially. Any additional revenue that we make or additional profit that we make, 40% of that goes to general revenue coffers by state statutes. Even though it is a parking division, it is a fee generating office and an enterprise fund. It does not operate as a separate entity from the city, which is why we not only present our budget here, but we also get the budget approved as well. So we'll be getting a board bill together to be able to have that very soon. And then similar to businesses, so if none of that made sense, but similar to a business, you have money that comes in and that funds the actual business. So we have the ability to issue debt, but also we have reserves, and we'll talk about that later, to be able to support developments all across the city, which is what we want to do, making sure that there is availability of parking for parking projects that move the city forward. I usually end or get closer to the end with this, but I'm putting it up front because I want to make sure that we understand the value add that we have for the city of St. Louis's parking division. So when I think about all the events and things that happen downtown, a conservative number would show that, one, we are supporting the parking needs to make sure that entities like the St. Louis Sports Commission can continue to win bids for things like the ice skating championships, making sure that we can actually provide parking and parking accessibility for things like that, and many other things that bring vibrancy to the city of St. Louis. So happy to partner with these local entities, and we want to continue doing that. Because it's needed and necessary. With our local banks, so we have close to $2 billion in managed investments. I make a concerted effort to make sure a lot of that is local as well. So we have $711 million in our local banking institutions, and that money is money that can be directly lent out, and you can go to our website to see the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act report, but that is money that is lent out to be reinvested in St. Louis. So we're happy to be able to do that and partner with the 17 different city depositories that we have. Conservative parking rates. So a parking ticket will cost you $20 depending on where you park. If you park in a handicap spot, it costs you a little bit more. But I always like to put that number out there to look at what our conservative parking rates forego. So oftentimes people don't want to get a parking ticket that costs as much as it would in Chicago because they're like, we're not Chicago, and they're right. But I also want to state that even though this is a fee generating office, I give this number to show that we also want to do what makes sense for St. Louis residents. So yes, we need to generate revenue for the parking division and also for the city, but we want to do it in a way that is equitable, in a way that makes sense and is responsive to the needs and financial situations of St. Louisans. Since 2019, we've contributed more than $20 million, so that 40% that goes back into general revenue. So since 2019, that's the total that's gone into there. And then in addition to that, we have interest that's booked to general revenue as well from the managed investments, and that's about $50 million. So this might be hard to, well, it's hard for me to see. Let me do this. Not as young as I used to be. But it's in your packet. So this is just last year's budget performance. And we always, since we present the budget, we'll present this year's budget, but we always like to let you know what ended. So those were our projections. So you can look on the left side and then the right side. There's nothing too major. There's one category I will talk about, but nothing too major in the discrepancies. I know that, hiring is always a tough piece. We're pretty good on the hiring side, but we do have open positions which are accounted for in the 14% under budget figure that you see there for personnel. So it's not that we paid people less, it's just we had open positions. So I'm sure you all have seen in many of your presentations the salary savings that come along with that. The only big thing that I would draw your attention to, which I'll talk about more in detail later, is the equipment and improvements, which might be one of your questions. So that is a significant increase. Last year when I was talking about that, most of that is wrapped up into our repair and replacement budget. So like I said, we have parking garages, which are massive outdoor structures. It takes a lot to upkeep them. If you see some parking structures around downtown that are not upkept, that are not ours, you can go into the cost of not only repairing those, but also getting those to where they need to be operable. But we make sure that we keep up with our repair and replace schedule. And so that schedule, we present that on a 3-year basis, which you'll see in a few slides later. But it's not that it just increased from last year to this year. It just takes the whole parking portfolio into consideration. And there's some scheduled maintenance that happens in certain years and not in others. So it's not that our maintenance costs just skyrocketed or increased from year to year, and then in a few years you'll see that it decreases. So it's not that our costs have changed, it's just that the maintenance schedule provides what the cost is going to be year to year. Next slide. Okay, so this is just where we closed out last year, where we're closing out the current fiscal year and what we're anticipating for fiscal year 27. So again, equipment and improvement. So we have those increases for our repair and replace. Again, all of those are on the parking side. All of those are mostly on the garage maintenance, upkeep, and improvement side. Some of that is security improvements, and some of that is also just new things that were new revenue control equipment that we're implementing to make sure that the parking process at our garages and lots is seamless and smooth. But yes, most of that is just to maintain these big outdoor parking structures. Next slide. Okay, so these are our revenue projections for the year. So I won't draw your attention to any specific number, but at the top you'll see the parking meters. So we separate parking meters from parking tickets. And then you can see the garages as well. And one thing I will stress, so if you look at our budget on paper, you'll see the revenue line, and then you'll also see the cost line. That doesn't just mean that is, and then if you see the profit, that is not the profit just on a parking ticket, which tends to be public perception, but included in the entire parking budget is yes, what we charge for tickets, yes, what we charge at the meters, but also the cost of upkeeping these garages. One thing that we have been seeing, so we do have lease space available in a lot of our garages. Well, ever since 2020, we've been tracking and trying to make sure that we can increase the number of parkers that we have, but with folks working from home, going remote or hybrid, and then also with a lot of our garages being downtown, folks just moving out of the downtown area, especially on the office side. We have seen reductions there, so we do have conservative projections with our garages, especially with our master. Next slide. Cool. So this is that repair and replacement budget. So we're required to calculate these and propose them to our bondholders every 3 years. And again, this is just looking at the scheduled maintenance for all the garages that we have and what we anticipate those costs to be on a 3-year projection basis. So this, the last few times that I've presented this, it was 2023 to 25. So you'll see this, well, if you're all on the same committee, you'll see this exact picture for the next 3 years, unless anything changes. All right. Debt balance. So in order to build garages, we will often issue revenue bonds. So those bonds are basically loans or debts that we pay back through the revenues that we receive from parking. So this is our debt balance. We haven't built any new garages. We haven't issued any new bonds. So you should see the trend line continuing downward as it is. So yeah, so not too much more to say there. The next slide that you see are parking reserves. I'll spend a little time talking about this and you'll see the notes, but we are continually adding to our reserves. So folks will ask, well, if 40% of the profit goes back to general revenue, where does the other 60% go? And part of that goes into the reserves, so it allows us to be able to, like I said, continue to support development projects and other projects that might be around St. Louis or going on around St. Louis that have parking needs. I will say that, of course, you'll see the big dip, and I know I say this every year, so you all are probably familiar with it, but that big dip in 2019 and 2020 was when the former 28-person board had voted to take money from the Treasurer's General Revenue Fund and put it into the city's overall general revenue fund, which I can't stress enough is not very helpful to an enterprise fund, especially when, one, luckily we didn't have to lay off any staff during that. We were able to continue paying our staff during that tough time. But those reserves are what we can use to actually, be able to finance that a little bit better, be able to get those numbers down so that the cost of borrowing is a lot cheaper. So it's very helpful to have a healthy set of reserves, and I'm glad that we are continuing to build that back since that happened. Next slide. Okay, so additional value added things. We often participate in job fairs, things that are going on around the city. I know we participated in parking forgiveness for one of your events, Alderwoman Sonia, but we do like to do this one to, again, just try to be a little bit more equitable, have a heart. And we know that oftentimes people forget to pay tickets, things happen, and if they have higher balances, we want to help them get that down. We do have a parking payment plan program as well, pre-boot and pre-tow, but we do offer that, and we try to do that around the city because we know there's a lot of good things. There are a lot of good things that are happening in the city, and we want to provide additional incentives for that as well. We can go to the next slide. And then here's just general fund contributions. I spoke to this earlier in the slides, just what that total contribution over 20 million last 10 years has been. But these are just the numbers by year. And then again, there are 2 years in there where fiscal year 20 and 21, there's a zero, but I did add that even though there was a zero, that 0% was zero from the 0.4% because those were years in COVID years where there was no profit, but there was, again, 11.1 million and 5.3 million respectively that went to general revenue in those years. So there were contributions, even though this is the 0.4 or 40% contribution, there was nothing on that line. All right, what we're looking forward to. So we're trying to widen our array of accepted payments. So again, I said we're trying to upgrade our payment systems and garage equipment, and that's to make sure that we can take tap to pay. A few years ago, we upgraded. We were only cash only at events, so we were able to make that transition, and we want to keep making it as easy and smooth as possible for people to park in St. Louis, whether you're a resident or a visitor. We are also using our data. We've done this in a couple of places to implement app-only. So places where we don't have to have a big bulky pay station on the street and we can have a more beautiful walkway, we want to be able to do that. So we're using our data to see where those places are primarily using the app anyway and how can we implement that. And it also saves us on cost. It's another thing that we don't have to maintain. And of course, there will be options for those who are not smartphone savvy or tech savvy, so there are still options even if we don't have a physical pay station. Security is very important to people, so I like to talk about it. So we have seen a significant reduction since we internalized our security and gotten full-time staff. And it's worked to improve and lock down a lot of our garages as well, especially with our garages most of our garages being downtown and also highly populated areas that get a lot of traffic and interesting visitors on weekends. So this is something that we've committed to and will commit to. All right, on the horizon in terms of parking projects, we're always looking for opportunities to get grant funding, especially to take St. Louis in I guess not the future now, but take St. Louis into the present when it comes to sustainability infrastructure. So we're going to continue that. And we continue to search for those even in the current federal grant climate. We are always looking to support with development projects that require need parking. And then one of the big things that I want to be able to do this year is conduct a study that identifies public parking availability. I know that oftentimes when it's talked about that a new parking lot or a new parking garage is coming up in the city, people say we already have too much parking. But what's often left out of the conversation is that not all of that is public parking. And I think that goes into a larger conversation around zoning and how development happens when there is a need for parking. So again, if we have a block of 5 developments, each of them might have to have their own parking lot. But if we can be more efficient in how we understand the demands of parking in that area and be able to combine those efforts, now we have 4 parcels that don't have to be lots and can be more space that is retail or residential or something that's adding, or green space, adding to the vibrancy. But it comes from knowing what our actual stock is. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some of our divisions. One of the newest ones, Gateway ID card program. I think we are in week 2 of officially being open. So if you haven't gotten your Gateway ID yet, go ahead and get it. And I want to thank Alderman Velasquez for championing that legislation. At the Board of Aldermen, we've had a bunch of people who have come in to get their ID. They say that it's an easy process. They say that we have great staff, so I like that as well. And that is a quick process. They're here for a good time, not a long time. But yes, this is our total budget. We did want and request 3 folks for this office. A big piece of that is because we know we have to do outreach to the community to make sure folks who need this get this and folks who don't know about it get it. And that's a big job and a big role. We're going to do our best to do that with the staff that we have. But I would really appreciate this group's advocacy in support of the program, because the more that you all support it, the more successful it will be. Next slide. Cool. Okay, so the next 3 slides. Yeah, the next 3 slides are just the Treasury budget. It's in your packets. There wasn't anything necessarily that was going by the guidelines that you all set. Nothing that was such a big variance that it made sense to discuss. One of the things I will say that we're looking at in Treasury under the professional services side is getting a CRM managed dashboard so that we can move some of our processes that are on spreadsheets to something that is more dynamic. You can go to the next slide and then the final slide. And then the final slide there, you'll see just the total, the next slide. Total department budget. All right. I believe that's all I have, so I'll open it up to any questions that you all have.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Starting in order of seniority, Alderwoman.
I don't really have any questions. I would just, thank you on the record for all the events you've come to and help us get some parking tickets forgiven. It's certainly been something that was liked. And I would say on the record, especially to my colleagues, and we had at a town hall, we had folks that literally, some of them tried to come just for the parking forgive, which I don't have an issue with. As long as you come, you come. But we even had to have a separate area for folks to go through. So I just found that really helpful. And then I would also just echo gratitude. I did get to see the layout of the Gateway ID program, so I would definitely give a big shout out to your office as well as Alderwoman Velasquez on that rollout. And my only question would just be tied to that about any other future plans you have on rolling that out. As far as like making that available in other spaces, communication with the school district, communication with recreation centers, communication with senior places, or just more details on rolling that out and making sure that as many people as possible know that that is something that is available to them.
Yeah, so we've been, working pretty hard to get it launched. And so that, phase 1 was launching, getting out those initial IDs. And we had a lot of folks who were visiting the office prior to even having a location. And location is important, and we're going to need some budget funds for that as well, with City Hall's location being tight. But yeah, we had a lot of people come in, so we wanted to make sure we were able to get the doors open. But in the planning process, we wanted to account for the mobility, right? Because St. Louis can be a tough place to get around, so we want to get around 2 people. So we got, as big as they are, we got a machine that we wanted to make sure that they were able to be transported. We're set up on a cloud system to make sure that this can operate outside of the walls of City Hall. So that will be something that we're planning on as well, because whenever I do something, I want to do it the right way. So I don't just want to show up and then all of a sudden things aren't working. So we want to plan that out to see what does it look like to be in community at certain places, printing IDs on the spot.
Well, thank you. That concludes my questions.
All right, thank you.
Alderwoman Velasquez?
Thank you. Thank you, Treasurer Lane, for being here. I don't have any questions for you now. I know we had a lot of talk about the IDs, so I'm glad to see it roll out. I know we've talked about it, but it would be great if in next year's budget, we could keep advocating for that additional person, because I think to Alderwoman Sagnier's line of questioning, I mean, having that additional staff would make it possible for the program to be more mobile than it's a very important space in City Hall, but that it can be in different spaces. So I will call on my colleagues to advocate for that as well, for some additional funding. And I'm here for whatever you need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Treasurer. I guess on page 7, the projection, if I'm reading this right, so I know we're just starting back up the boot program, and it's projected to bring in a lot more money because it's just starting up. So this would be the full year of it running. Those funds also, I guess, would go into the treasurer's office, which ultimately would go in the 40% to the city general revenue. So additional funds to the city of St. Louis would come from the boot program. Correct?
Yes.
And just for the public, how many tickets do it take to get a boot? How many tickets do it take before you're on the boot list? And could you talk about a little bit, like you say, that the programs you got to help people that may need assistance that could pay monthly or whatnot?
Can do. And I'll add one other thing. So with the boots there, so there is a boot fee. And so what you're seeing in terms of that line item is, what the expected revenue on boots. But when it comes to the actual tickets, that'll go into ticket revenue. So I just wanted to clarify that, because someone might be like, oh, you're only going to get that much from booting. It's like, well, the revenue actually goes back into the ticket part, because they're paying the tickets to get the boot off. But there is a fee for the boot, so that generates its own separate pot of revenue. Yes, so we'll be doing that, and we'll be ramping it up. I want to thank the Streets Division, so specifically the Tow Division, and Ed Young, who have been doing a great job in supporting my parking division and dispatch to get a lot of these cars off the road. As we've started, we've looked at high priority vehicles, and we say high priority, we understand. Yeah.
Say that again. You say you looked at what type of vehicle?
High priority.
Okay.
Yep. So high priority vehicles. And so high priority for us, we're like, a lot of people have a lot of tickets, but those over offenders, I would say. So a lot of folks, it takes, just to your question, 4 tickets that have matured to get to be boot eligible. So if you get a $20 ticket, you need to get 4 of those. And then after 30 days, it doubles. After 45 days, it doubles again. So a $20 ticket becomes an $80 ticket if unpaid within the first 45 days. So if you have 4 of those, that's about $320, right? So ideally, we don't want people who, can just have $320 and can pay that. We're not booting them. So we're looking at cars that have, and I give that number to give context, we're looking at cars right now that have 1,500 or more in boot eligible tickets, or a boot ticket balance first. But this mobilization has helped to gain some of that lost revenue back, since we haven't been booting in 8 years. So it has helped that. it's helped a lot from what I hear from the Downtown Neighbors and Neighborhood Association. It helped to curb a little bit of the behavior too around parking downtown or illegal parking downtown. And one of the, as we continue to roll it out, because like I said, I wanted, right? So we rolled it out in small increments to make sure our process was right. Having not done it in almost a decade, things have changed. Personnel have changed. The way we dispatch and work with our partners over in the towing division has changed. So we want to make sure all that is ironed out. The next phase is moving into the residential pieces, because I know you all get a lot of calls and emails from your residents that tell you, you know, this car's been abandoned for so long, it's over here. And while they don't need parking tickets to be able to be towed, parking ticket violation is one of 12 legal ways a car can be removed off the street, but it does help to be able to work with the streets department in doing that. So we'll be doing that, and again, we want to do it in an equitable way. So right now, and we instituted this in 2021, we have a parking and towing assistance program. So no matter what balance you have, if your car hasn't been booted or towed yet and you have a lot of tickets, you can visit our Parking Violations Bureau or give them a phone call, and we can actually set you up on a payment plan. Now, there are thresholds. So, you know, if you got $20,000 in tickets, you're not going to be paying $10 a month. So there are thresholds, but we do have payment plans available.
And if they're on a payment plan, will they then not be on the boot list?
Yes. So if you're on the payment plan and you're making your monthly payments, you will not be boot eligible. So your car will not be booted and towed as long as you're keeping up with the program, and as long as you don't get any new tickets. So so I'll say, you know, if you are in the program and you get a new ticket, you can pay that ticket. It won't be part of your plan balance. But if you get a new ticket and then that ticket matures, then you can get boot eligible again.
And I guess restarting the program, did you all send out like notifications like, hey, we're restarting this and your car is potentially bootable?
So we send out, so if you get, you know, believe it or not, some people might have, 67 tickets. And with each of those, and there's a paper cost to that. So with each ticket you get 3 notices, well, 4 notices. You get the ticket on your car, you get a notice in the mail after 30, a notice in the mail before the 30, before the 45, and then after that as well. So they get a lot of notices. We were originally supposed to, or tried to restart booting and towing 2 years ago, and that just did not pan out. But even when we did that, before we started booting and towing, we did send out notices. We put notices on folks' cars, and then we also did a mailer.
Gotcha.
So we've been notifying them.
Yeah. And, you know, we've been talking about the boot for a while. You know, I look at it almost like it's not the same of like the moratorium, but as we was coming out of COVID and people were struggling, like, you know, one less thing. But I get at some point people need to be, you know, held responsible and like, you know, pay your parking tickets. On that same page, you talk about the income for boot and parking tickets. What is the income for meters removing meters?
So meters, if you pay the meter. So if I go park and I spend 2 hours there, it costs me $250. So that would be people who pay the meter. That would be the meter revenue.
Okay.
If you don't pay the meter and you get a ticket, that's the ticket revenue.
And then last question, could you just talk about, I guess, we talked about the Muni card ID that Alderman Velasco has worked so hard to pass, and full support at the Board of Alder. The empowerment budget, could you just talk about like that budget or the office?
Yes. Yep. So, and that'll be wrapped up into that parking board bill because it's in there. But with our empowerment budget, so we have, I'm trying to think of the number of staff that we have there. About 5 staff in that office. And we're looking to hire, we just made an offer to our new Director of Financial Empowerment that will be there. And then historically, we've had 1 financial empowerment coach, and we've upped that to 2 to be able to serve more of St. Louis. So that's what we do there. And then also we have a portion that also comes from the parking ticket revenue that does the seed funding for college kids accounts. So that initial $50 that goes into new accounts for kindergartners, that comes from parking revenue as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but we do workshops. A lot of staff have joined our workshops. We had with America Save or St. Louis Saves Week, we had a culminating event in this room. We talked through some financial topics, had some great questions and engagement from city employees. So we're glad that our city employees are seeing this as a benefit, and we want opening the doors to all the city offices to be able to get what they need.
Yeah, and shout out to your team for that week, because I know they was doing a lot of recruiting, coming in and talking to staff at least at the board, and I know I've seen flyers throughout City Hall and plenty of the emails, and I was able to peek in and see the event, and it was like a packed room. The Alderwoman from the 7th would have enjoyed it. They had gourmet soul, speaking of food. So it was a really good educational event, and nobody have any other questions or comments? Appreciate you, Mr. Treasurer.
All right, thank you so much.
And to your staff as well.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty then. So with that concludes today's budget conversation. We will start back up again tomorrow at 9:30, where we will hear from, give me 1 second. We will hear from the building division starting at 9:30. Corrections at 11. We'll take a break in between. Civilian oversight at 1, and then the license collector at 2, and that would wrap up the first full week of the budget committee. Any written testimony, Madam Clerk?
We have none.
Any announcements from committee members? Everybody, or I will excuse the alderman from the 5th Ward for necessary absence, and I'll take them. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.